And we're going to be hopping in a $250 draft on Underdog. And I used to think that these were the toughest drafts you were going to find. But based on the past few drafts that we have had in the $250 lobby, I honestly think that they may be easier than the $5 drafts, than the $10 drafts. I mean, based on usually in these drafts, you have 1 to 2 people going crazy. You have 1 to 2 people going absolutely wild, allowing you to find very strong values later on. I mean, in the draft that we started yesterday, I believe we ended up getting, what was it? Justin Herbert at like the 505. It was something crazy, but I will be excited to start this. Looks like we have 2 spots left. So if you're wanting to join this $250 league, make sure you know where it is on Underdog. You go join in the lobby ASAP. I'd imagine it takes another 10 seconds to get filled, but during those 10 seconds, let me tell you what we do every single night here now. I know I'm speaking to maybe one person on the planet because everybody else has already signed up for Underdog, has already had some fun in these drafts, but if you are the last person on planet Earth that does not know this, we are drafting on Underdog Fantasy. We do this every single night. And I repeat, every single night on the live stream. And when you go and sign up for Underdog Fantasy, A, you get to draft with us on the live stream, which we do 3 or 4 of these every single night. B, because I worked my ass off to get this for you, when you use promo code FLOCK, when you sign up for Underdog Fantasy and make a $10 deposit, they match that deposit dollar for dollar to 100, and you get our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide, 300 pages with a $10 deposit. Make sure you take advantage of that. Of course, you get our rankings when you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog as well. You can find the link in the live chat, find it in the description of the video. But we are just sitting here waiting at pick 1. Let me go through and set up this live stream. I can go and answer some questions we have in the live chat right now. Of course, thank you all so much, everybody, for coming out and hanging out with us this early. Y'all know I appreciate you. And as soon as I get this set up, I will be happy to go through and answer your questions. But the conceit says, "Sup, Mason? My dad saw me drafting with you last night on the live stream." Oh, that is like about the coolest thing that I've ever heard. You're telling me that your dad was randomly watching our live stream and then saw your name in the draft with us? Does he not know you've been drafting with us for years, my man? That is crazy. Okay, so let's go through and see if we have any other messages. Master says, "How much faith do you have in Christian McCaffrey this year?" I mean, hell, he can be the running back 1 overall. I mean, we can be the number 1 overall player in fantasy. We've already seen that upside, so I think you have to have him in that top tier alongside Jonathan Taylor, but I am going to prefer JT over him. Mike says, "What dollar sign is this one?" This is the $250 draft on Underdog. There's 1 spot left. So if you want to get in this draft with us, you know where it is. Underdog, just go to the public lobby. Click the link in the live chat. It'll take you immediately there. And these drafts fill very slowly, so you don't have to worry about trying to join and then all of a sudden not getting in our draft. If you join and you're sitting in the lobby and we're drafting, you can easily just leave. Like, you don't have to worry about that at all. But let's go through. See, we got Thomas out here. Naheem says, "A 4th pick in a 10-team league with Travis Kelce available, but guys like Aaron Jones, CeeDee Lamb, and Saquon Barkley. 10-team format, I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to take Travis Kelce. I'm assuming we're looking at the 1-2 turn, maybe the middle of the 2nd round. Just take Travis Kelce there." And then let's go through. Mike says, "I had Aaron Jones fall to the 212 today. Is something going on that I don't know?" Apparently, you're getting some crazy Aaron Jones value. But, okay, give me a top 5 pick. For the love of God, top 5 pick. Please, please, please. Oh my gosh. 10 is hard to pick from. It's a little bit better than 12, but oh my gosh, we are going to be put in a very difficult spot. Hopefully we have a value making it to us in the 3rd round that we like, because the 1-2 turn, it's kind of whatever. Like, I don't want to sit here and cry about the 1-2 turn that you're going to have at pick 10. But what makes pick 10 so hard in these Underdog drafts is the 3-4 turn. Right before you get there, you have a tier drop off where the players that are going to be available to you at pick 34 in my opinion, are about the same caliber of guys that you have at pick 52. Like, it is legitimately crazy how large and how flat that tier is, where usually when you're sitting there on the clock at the 3-4 turn, you're going to find yourself in no man's land in these drafts. But hopefully that doesn't happen to us. Hopefully we are able to find some value. Derek's in this draft with us. Derek's going to be picking at 6. We have OMG out here as well at 7. Maybe I think Marshall's a part of the flock. I can't be 100% sure with that at 12. Derek says someone followed me. I'm assuming Derek's talking about the top 5 guys. Top 5 guys, obviously. You have the 2 running backs. There they go, 1 and 2. Then the 3 wide receivers with Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, and Jamar Chase. Sometimes you will get someone to go through and sneak in, like an Austin Eckler at pick 4, an Austin Eckler at pick 5. Personally, I wouldn't do it in this format when you have to start 3 wide receivers. I think I go through and I just take the wide receiver there, and it's a no-brainer. Okay. Now, let's go through and see. Endless Football says, dude, I've gotten the 110 about 5 times in a row now. And hey, what did we call? We called someone maybe sneaking in Austin Eckler there at pick 4. And that's exactly what happens at this point. Very interesting, very interesting. So, yeah, Derek already going out there saying yes in the chat. So, he is probably going to end up getting a Jamar Chase to him at pick 6. Maybe Ice Cream Man, or I don't know what that says. Maybe they decide to go ahead. Maybe they decide to take Jamar Chase over Cooper Kupp if they're very much concerned about the elbow injury. And Derek getting a blessing has freaking Cooper Kupp following to him at pick 6. I am so jealous, my friend. And holy crap, I shine out here with a $100 donation. Oh my gosh. Easily. The largest donation we've had in the offseason. Thank you so much, my friend. Let me make our selections here at the 1-2 turn. Then I'm going to be super happy to go through and answer that question for you. Thank you so much. But let's see what this team, they go Dalvin Cook. We're going to take Devontae Adams in the first with Devontae Adams. I wouldn't take him here if you did not have to start 3 wide receivers. But because this format, I think it dictates that we have to take Devontae Adams at pick 10 when a lot of the running backs that we're going to be looking at on the way back around to pick 15 are about the exact same. But holy crap. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. But let's see what happens. I would love to get a Najee Harris, a Travis Kelce, or a Joe Mixon, or honestly a CeeDee Lamb. I mean, we could start this draft off with a double wide receivers here and maybe do something that's a little bit different than what we usually have been doing on these live streams. So this team goes all the way down to the very last second. They end up, I don't want to say it was an auto draft for sure, but keep in mind, some people may have been waiting in this $250 draft lobby for God knows how long. So it could have been an auto draft. Maybe they ended up moving away from their phone. A lot of these teams are taking this down to the very last second here. So Marshall, I'm assuming that they end up going with like a Kelce and a CeeDee Lamb, or maybe like a Joe Mixon and the Saquon Barkley. I don't know. But if they go just with a completely random pick, we'd love that. So Travis Kelce there, pick 12. Maybe both of these teams drafting between us are on auto draft. If that's going to be the case, we definitely need to take note of that. And we are going to have to be making an adjustment. Okay. But let me answer this question for iShine as we wait. Grade my draft 12-team PPR format. We got Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones at the 1-2 turn. Okay. This is a 12-team league here. Joe Mixon, in my opinion, top 5 running back. Even if you don't want to call it, we can say top 10 running back. He's in that flat tier, guys. So top 10 running back, Aaron Jones, in my opinion, also running back 1. So 2 running back 1s on the roster. Tyreek Hill, obviously Tyreek Hill, a significant downgraded quarterback, lower expectations overall, but regardless, hell, Tyreek Hill is a completely fine value at this point. Kyle Pitts, the tight end 3 this year in fantasy. Brandon Cooks, David Montgomery, Robert Woods, Dak Prescott, James Robinson, Drake London, Devontae Parker, Bucks defense, Brian Robinson, Marvin Jones, Tua, and Ryan Suckup. I had the 9th pick, Flock Rocks. My friend, that is such a good draft. And I'm sorry, we are going to look at that in a little more depth right after we think about this. Let's think. F it, we'll go Barkley. Who the hell cares? But yeah, going back to what we were looking at this, I mean, a great team, my friend. I mean, if we were looking at making any moves whatsoever, maybe we would look to try to package up like a Tyreek Hill as well as one of these depth pieces, whether that's a Tyreek Hill and a Drake London, a Tyreek Hill and say maybe a David Montgomery to try to get CeeDee Lamb, because it does look like this is going to be a shallower format in the amount of roster spots that we have. So going out of our way and paying up for that elite level prospect, elite level wide receiver to just jam into our starting lineup every single week, and at the same time get that correlation in there with Dak Prescott, I would actually really like that. But thank you so much, my friend. I think it's a 10 out of 10 draft. Not too much for me to say. Maybe like the Marvin Jones roster spot at the very end there, you would probably prefer to go through and just use that on an extra bench running back, because in a shallow redraft format, there are always going to be a million wide receivers in the waiver wire that look like Marvin Jones. So maybe you're not necessarily incentivized to go through and burn a roster spot on him. But thank you so much. That's a fantastic draft. I would just say maybe to try to go through and make a move for CeeDee Lamb and optimize one of those bottom end roster spots by moving off of Marvin Jones just for a high upside running back that you can feel like you can even cut by the time we get to week 1. But Adam coming out, thank you, my friend, says Herbert, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Courtland Sutton, Deontay Johnson, George Kittle, Brandon Cooks, Chris Olave, Christian Kirk, Ramadre, Chase Edmonds, Tyler Algier, and Tyrion Davis-Price, not including the kicker and defense. What do you rate this? Okay, obviously you have 2 elite level running backs with Barkley and Henry. You have a couple very exciting onesie position players with the combination of Justin Herbert as well as George Kittle. One thing that I would look to try to do if we have Justin Herbert on this build is go through and look to move Courtland Sutton and see if we can get a Keenan Allen or if we can get a Mike Williams. I have Mike Williams and Courtland Sutton ranked back-to-back in fantasy this year, but I mean, if we are looking at the potential to go through and move off of a Sutton for a player that's in that same tier and at the same time be able to bring in that correlation, I think that would make a lot of sense. But outside of that, like that we're using those bench spots on the running backs just to see what's going to happen. That way we can cut those guys before the season starts. Derek coming out, thank you, my friend, says, glad I got Cooper Kupp to fall to me. I ended up dropping some in the DK golf, but I ended up turning 140 to over 3K. I'll pass a little on to you. Thank you, my friend, so much. I'll say, you're not passing a little on to me with the $20 donation. You're passing a little on to me with this $250 buy-in in our league real quick where I'm about to crush you. Okay, that's where it's getting passed on, my friend. But of course, thank you for coming out and drafting with us every single night. Does suck that you didn't end up shipping it, but it is what it is. Obviously, 3K being not going to be the worst thing in the world. Now we have Josh Allen going off the board 28. Leonard Fournette falls to 27 here. Very interesting that, yeah, the team at 2 decided to go Michael Pittman, maybe just making that consolidated bet on that Indianapolis Colts offense between Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman there, rather than taking Leonard Fournette at 26. Kyle Pitts goes right before Derek. I'm sure Derek's not that happy about it. I'm sure that he would have preferred getting Kyle Pitts on the way back around. But how the hell does this happen? I have never seen this. I have never seen this in a million years. Mike Evans, pick 30. Derek is getting a blessing here in this draft. Kupp, Debo, Mike Evans, all in the same roster. Oh my gosh, that's exciting, my friend. That is very exciting. Mike Williams off the board. Give us DJ Moore. For the love of God, give us DJ Moore. DJ Moore goes. Let's think through this. I have Waddle ranked clearly before Courtland Sutton. But if we were wanting to go back-to-back wide receivers, if you're looking at my rankings right now, let's go Sutton here and roll the dice that we get Jalen Waddle on the way back, pick 39. That's what we're going to do. We're going to take Sutton here, roll the dice. Y'all know very rarely my drafting Courtland Sutton. I thought Courtland Sutton in fantasy before the Tim Patrick injury was the worst pick in fantasy when you were taking him at the end of the third. Obviously, with Tim Patrick going down, Courtland Sutton's a lot more manageable. We do have him ranked, I believe, as the wide receiver 18, wide receiver 19. Waddle ends up going. You know what I'm going to do here instead then? We are going to reach on Jerry Jeudy. We can make that consolidated bet in that Denver Broncos passing offense. And at the same time, I think if we're able to bring in Russell Wilson at a reasonable price point in the 7th round, it will make a lot of sense. I mean, all these wide receivers here are about the same for me. I bet the actual highest ranked player we probably had at the wide receiver position was going to be a Deontay Johnson. But outside of that, like Jerry Jeudy versus an Allen Robinson, I'm completely fine investing into the 2 wide receivers on the turn here. This isn't something that I've done very often. The issue is, and we talked about this the second we pulled pick 10. Pick 10's like the worst spot to be picking in. Pick 10, pick 11, pick 12. Is because this 3-4 turn, you have no idea what to do. You legitimately have no idea what to do, and you're just kind of throwing your hands in the air. So let's try to make a unique build. Now, Riley coming out. Thank you for coming out every single night in these live streams, my friend. I appreciate it. Ryan as well says, are you concerned about Cam Akers? I mean, with Akers, I'd say, yeah, you do have to be concerned somewhat about the recovery process with the torn Achilles based on what we've historically seen. You have to be concerned with the drop-off in efficiency we saw at the very end of last season. But you have to remember, Cam Akers was a late round 1 pick before the torn Achilles. He was a late round 1 pick. So yes, you have to be concerned, but at the same time, the downside that you have with that situation, it is baked into the price. Now, Steven coming out says, how would you alter rankings if you get points per carry and points per reception? Thank you, my friend, so much. Points per carry, I've played in a ton of these formats. It's going to depend. If you play in a points per carry league where it's 0.1 points per carry, then in reality, it's not going to make too much of a difference for you. What you should be doing is you should be going up and pushing up those mobile quarterbacks. You should be pushing up running backs, understanding that they will be slightly more optimal in that flex spot. But I've also played in leagues where it's 0.25 points per carry, where it's 0.33 points per carry. And in that context, dear God, you could never, and I repeat, ever decide to go through and put a wide receiver in your flex spot. You need to be starting as many running backs as humanly possible. In a league like that, I'm going to go running back, running back, running back, running back, running back, running back, running back throughout the course of the draft. And if we're going to be looking at those rushing quarterbacks as well, remember, if Lamar Jackson averages 10 rushing yards a game, 10 rushing attempts a game in a league where you get 0.25 points per carry, that's going to be an additional 2.5 points on top of everything else. That's an equivalent to about 65, 70 passing yards. So push up those rushing quarterbacks as well. Okay. Dear God, the donations are going crazy. Thank you, Saram, out here as well. Says, hey, Mason, hope you're doing well. Thoughts on this team, please. 12-team shallow PPR. We got Lamar, Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, Mike Evans, Jalen Waddle, Dalton Schultz, Drake London. On the bench, Ramondre Stevenson, Darrell Henderson, Gus Edwards, Christian Kirk, Joshua Palmer, and KJ Hamler. Okay, very interesting. So Lamar obviously coming away with that elite level quarterback I really like in a shallow format. Dalton Schultz, I'm not the biggest fan of Dalton Schultz in the world, but I mean, if we are looking at him, I think that he is a clear tier before the guys like you have oh my God, Justin Herbert off the board to Derek here. Absolutely crazy. But I think he is a clear tier of those guys, ahead of those guys that you have like Dawson Knox, Zach Ertz as well. Love the combo, Joe Mixon and Aaron Jones in a shallow format. Getting Mike Evans in the 3rd round, Joe, great team. Great team, my friend. I would say you could probably find someone better off the waiver wire than what you're looking at with a Cam Akers, but still, I love that roster. Okay. So let's go ahead and we're going to take J.K. Dobbins here as our running back too. I mean, with Dobbins, I'm very surprised to see that this is where he's still going in drafts currently. I thought that you would have to pay up the price on a J.K. Dobbins if we were looking at the reports that we're getting out of Baltimore about Gus Edwards. And as well, if we just remember how good of a prospect J.K. Dobbins was coming out of coming out of Ohio State, and how we know the Ravens want to run the ball over and over and over again. Okay. So let's move this over, and dear God. I am very excited about that J.K. Dobbins value. I did not expect to see that. Marshall, I don't know if they auto-draft DK Metcalf. I didn't know if they auto-drafted Travis Etienne earlier. I have no idea. Now, what I will say is, y'all know, usually I love the quarterbacks in this range. Looking at a Kyler Murray, looking at a Jalen Hurts, 9 times out of 10, these guys are just no-brainer selections for me at the beginning of the 6th round. But remember, we took Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy with this team. So what we really want to see with this team is we really want to see Russell Wilson making it back to us in the 7th. And we need to ask ourselves, what gives us the best chance of having Russell Wilson make it back to us in the 7th round? And it's probably a poor choice of words, but I would describe it as just sacrificing Kyler Murray, sacrificing Jalen Hurts to these other teams, because no team in their right mind is going to decide to take Russell Wilson over a Kyler Murray or a Jalen Hurts, So I think if we take David Montgomery here in the 6th, I think that we are giving ourselves a decent shot at seeing the other teams after us. If they wanted to bring in one of those elite level quarterbacks, hell, they just grab one. They just take Jalen Hurts. They just take Kyler Murray, and we get a decent shot on getting Russell Wilson on the way back around, which clearly we want Russell Wilson with this build if we're going to look at the fact that we have the combo of Courtland Sutton as well as Jerry Jeudy. Let's see what Derek does here. Derek just has the best team ever. Derek is in a beautiful situation at this point. Decap coming out says, how do we access your guide after setting up an underdog account with promo code FLOCK? Okay, thank you so much, my friend, for supporting the channel. I will say, you don't just set up an underdog account with promo code FLOCK. You have to make an underdog account with promo code FLOCK and a minimum of a $10 deposit. So that $10 deposit and using promo code FLOCK is what gets you the guide and what gets you the rankings. But you'll notice when you make that $10 deposit that the deposits match dollar for dollar up to 100 the second they use promo code FLOCK. So it may be a little bit confusing when you don't get the draft guide, when you don't get the rankings that second, but it's going to take a couple of hours to go through the underdog system that you use promo code FLOCK. And then they will send you an email with our rankings and with our draft guide to the email address you signed up to Underdog Fantasy with. If you cannot find that email, please wait a little bit, check your spam. And if you still cannot find it, which you're probably looking in the wrong place, but if you still cannot find it, send me an email. You can find my email address in the description of the video. I'd be super happy to go through and get that sorted out for you. But Shannon coming out, thank you so much, says, just signed up for Underdog with promo code FLOCK. How do I access draft rankings, draft guide? Love the content. Keep working hard. Okay, Shannon, happy that we just answered that question, but thank you for the donation. Thank you so much for the support regardless. Okay, so now let's move this over. And Derek here betrays us. He takes Trey Lance, taking away one of these elite level quarterbacks from someone else. I could have potentially gone with one. Now, Amari Cooper, Drake London to the GOAT, quite possibly the best fantasy football player, specifically DFS. But regardless, CSU Ram so far as a team. CMC, Nick Chubb at running back. Receiver, A.J. Brown. Interesting to see Amon-Ra St. Brown there, 49. Drake London, Amari Cooper. And then the elite level tight end with Darren Waller. So far with our team, there's not too much that I regret doing. Like we discussed, I 100% have Jalen Waddle ranked before Sutton, but when Sutton has an ADP of 33, when Jalen Waddle has an ADP of 38, I think that we can go through, we can roll the dice, see if we can get greedy and get both of those players. In reality, picking at the 3-4 turn is legitimate hell. No idea what to do in any draft that you're in at this point. So what I would say is kind of just got to throw your hands up in the air and say, I don't know. But regardless, I mean, I think I don't change anything with what we've done with this draft so far. I think this draft is going to come down to, can we get Russell Wilson at pick 82? And I think there's a pretty good shot that we end up with Russell Wilson there, because keep in mind, Russell Wilson has an ADP about, I believe, 81 off the top of my head. And the big reason is because the Jerry Jeudy team, the Courtland Sutton team, always decides to take Russell Wilson in the 7th round. So really, there aren't going to be that many rosters at this point that want to go through and draft Russell Wilson, or at least I wouldn't if I were them. Okay. Derek decides to go his guy, Tony Pollard there, pick 78. Very interesting that he decided to go Lance over A.J. Dillon. And Dalton Schultz finally off the board at 79. Dalton Schultz clearly a strong value there. And this is what we're looking for. And Joe Burrow falling. I think that is going to provide us some safety here with Russell Wilson. I think that is going to provide us some safety. Ramondre Stevenson off the board at 80. So we are going to get Russell Wilson. I'm almost certain that we're going to get Russell Wilson. I don't know if I've... Here we go. Perfect. This worked out, guys. I think this did work out now that we're getting Wilson here at pick 82 to get that double stack with Courtland Sutton as well as Jerry Jeudy. And if we're going to be looking at players that we have available to us at pick 87, I think that these teams between us, I think Marshall is on auto. So we should assume that a couple of these players at the very top end of the ADP, like Joe Burrow, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they're essentially guaranteed to be off the board. Never mind, he's maybe not on auto draft. He goes Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Chase Edmonds. See what this team decides. But Saram coming out again. Thank you, my friend. And holy crap, we get Joe Burrow here in the 8th. I mean, of course, you don't do this in a non-best ball format, but in a best ball format, going through and taking these two quarterbacks here, it is going to be a no-brainer. I think that we are going to have access to a very high ceiling every single week. And if we're going to be looking at what other options we have with this Joe Burrow combination here, we can look at taking a Tyler Boyd at pick 111. I love that price point of Tyler Boyd, and it'll make just a very natural pick with what we were able to do on the turn. So I'm not going to lie. I love this team. I love this team so far. Running back, Barkley, J.K. Dobbins, David Montgomery. Wide receiver, Devontae Adams, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. Quarterback, we have Russell Wilson and Joe Burrow. I love what we were able to do. Okay, well, let's pull this down. Saram, thank you as always, my friend, for being a longtime member of the flock. Says, thank you as always, Mason. What are your thoughts on the bench? Would you suggest dropping anyone for Jacoby Myers, Devontae Parker, Christian Watson, or for like a Mark Ingram? I think Christian Watson is the perfect example of someone that you want to be rostering on the very back end of your bench right now, in that he is someone that should have access to an elite level ceiling. He has a very low floor as well, though. So with the Christian Watson, it's very possible that you go through and say you drop Gus Edwards, for example, and you drop Gus Edwards for Christian Watson. And then by the time we get to week 1, you're like, why did I pick up Christian Watson? He's a bum. Well, then you're going to have other waiver wire options you're excited about after week 1. So you'll have an easy drop from Christian Watson. But I would take that swing for the fences. I would go through and drop someone like Gus Edwards, who in my opinion does have a very low ceiling for someone with a very wide range of outcomes, while yes, a low floor, but that high ceiling that we're searching for with a guy like Christian Watson. LOLG says, Mason, any private drafts later? And then Tony over Michael Pittman. Oh, that is a spicy take to go through and to say Kadarius Toney over Michael Pittman. Y'all know I'm not the biggest Michael Pittman guy in the world, but I don't know if I could get there. And 100%, I'll be happy to get another draft going. Just, guys, make sure, if you have not done so already, please go down there, drop a like in the live stream. If this stream hits 350 likes, we will fire up that next draft. And the next one will be a private draft. It'll probably just be like a $3, $5 draft where we can just get in, have some fun, not necessarily a super high pressure situation. Okay, so after we take Burrow here, obviously what we are wanting to see at this point is we want quarterbacks to go off the board. We want to see Derek Carr gone. We want to see, I guess really Rodgers doesn't even go in this range anymore, but get Derek Carr, get an Aaron Rodgers off the board. It would help us out a lot. So CSU Ram decides to go Tyler Lockett at pick 96. I wonder who else he's taking Lockett over. Okay, he goes Damian Harris and Tyler Lockett over Antonio Gibson. Okay, very interesting. Please, let me ask this for everybody. Let me ask this for everybody. At what point do we draft Antonio Gibson? If Antonio Gibson makes it to us at pick 106, do we take him? Clearly, this is a player plummeting down draft boards right now for good reason. Look at the preseason usage. Like, he should be a running back that is falling. Okay, so it looks like the majority of people are saying no. Teresa with a hard no. Okay. We'll pass on 106. And we talked about this all offseason, that Antonio Gibson does have an extremely low floor. We said this the second that Brian Robinson was drafted, that he possibly was drafted to be that Antonio Gibson replacement. And at this point, it's looking like that's probably more and more true, even though I still stand by the fact that I think that there is that wide range of outcomes that you're looking at with an Antonio Gibson. But Dameon Pierce off the board here. Let's see what Derek decides to do, whether that's bring in his third running back or maybe go right back to the wide receiver well. If we're looking at tight ends at this point, I'd be surprised if Derek decided to go with the tight end in this range. Okay. Let's move back around what we are going to look at. He goes James Cook. Okay, so Derek does indeed go with the running back that I probably would have been most excited about. So we also want to see Stafford off the board sometime soon as well. What's the report on Kenneth Walker? No timetable for return. RIP. Walker's without timetable for return, according to Coach Pete Carroll. The rookie running back underwent blah, blah, blah. So at this point, what are we looking at? I think the majority of these options are in a very flat tier for us. And if we're going to look at the fact that most people have Chase Claypool plummeting down their rankings, I think we should probably just lock in Tyler Boyd right now. That way we can get that correlation in here with Joe Burrow. We would want to maybe risk and roll the dice on making Tyler Boyd fall to us at pick 111 if there was someone else here that I was dying to draft. But in reality, I'm not necessarily dying to draft anybody at this point. They're all pretty much in a flat tier. If we were looking at a wide receiver after this, the wide receiver I'd probably want would be Garrett Wilson. the running back that I'd want would probably be Kenneth Walker or Melvin Gordon. So Marshall decides to go with his second tight end here in Dawson Knox. Completely fine seeing him take Dawson Knox, even if he already had Kelsey on the same team. I'm not dying to take Knox. I'm not dying to take Zach Ertz, really ever at this point. Okay, y'all decide what we are doing. These are the 3 players I'd be willing to take. Spam the chat ASAP. We have a little bit of a lag, but right now what we have is at quarterback, Russell Wilson, Joe Burrow. At running back, we have Saquon Barkley, J.K. Dobbins, David Montgomery. At wide receiver, we have Devontae Adams, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Tyler Boyd. Okay, it looks like the majority of people are saying Walker. We have 5 votes for, yeah, we're going to go Kenneth Walker. Obviously, with Walker, this is not nearly as exciting as the selection based on the injury, based on the timetable that we're looking for recovery. But keep in mind, this is going to be that $250 buy-in league where 4 teams are going to advance to the fantasy football playoff tournament in weeks 15, 16, 17. So if 4 teams advance, even if we were to have, say, no exciting production from a Kenneth Walker at the beginning portion of the season, we would still be able to have that upside for that final 3-week stretch where I think we could stay afloat with Saquon Barkley, J.K. Dobbins, and David Montgomery at the running back position. So let's go ahead. Let's take Walker here. I think all 3 of those guys were going to be in play for us. Let's see how far you end up having a Garrett Wilson fall. Derek decides to go Russell Gage, 115. Very interesting there. Okay, so now Shannon coming out again says, a weekly start league. I have Javonte Williams, Najee Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, Cordell Patterson. I was offered Dalvin Cook and Melvin Gordon for Najee Harris. I would say that it's probably going to be a shallow format where Melvin Gordon isn't necessarily making a massive difference for you, especially knowing that we're going to have to go through if we're going to have to cut a player that you like at the very end of your bench. So I don't even want to overthink it too much. I mean, if it was a deeper league where you think Melvin Gordon's going to be someone that's 10 times better than whoever you're going to be cutting from your bench, then sure, it's probably a no-brainer type deal. But in reality, I think it just does come down to Dalvin Cook and Najee Harris are in the same tier. Your personal preference. Now, if you're looking at my rankings, I have Najee Harris ranked over Dalvin Cook. I think that there are clear red flags with both players. But in reality, it's going to be up to you. I hate to give you that answer. Obviously, it's a crappy answer. But assuming that it's a very shallow format, Melvin Gordon isn't necessarily going to be someone you need to be super excited about getting. Okay. Thomas says, Mason, will a private draft or a high-stakes draft be up next? So this is a high-stakes draft here, so most likely a private draft. We're just going to get like a $3 private draft for anybody wanting to join. So make sure if y'all want another draft after this one, if we hit 350 likes, we'll fire up another draft. And if you want to join our next draft, go to the link in the live chat, go to the link in the description of the video, go sign up for Underdog Fantasy, use promo code FLOCK, make that $10 deposit. When you make that $10 deposit, because I worked my ass off to get y'all this, you are going to get our 2022 fantasy football rankings and our 2022 fantasy football draft guide hitting your email with that $10 deposit with promo code FLOCK. Okay. But now we have Romeo Doubs, Joshua Palmer, Garrett Wilson finally off the board here. Pick 121. Garrett Wilson was someone that I think I would have taken over pretty much every wide receiver in this range. But now we have Romeo Doubs off the board, 124. We still need to be bringing in receivers. I mean, we're not dying at the wide receiver position. We have Adams. We have the 2 Denver guys. And as well, we have our guy, Tyler Boyd. But clearly Boyd isn't the most exciting wide receiver for us. So I think we need to start bringing in more players. Derek decides to go with Isaiah Pacheco here. Derek, you have to give me your Isaiah Pacheco take. Like, is this someone we really need to be drafting over Alexander Mattison? Obviously, I know you're a Chiefs fan. I know you are a big Chiefs guy. So please fill me in on what's going on, because if he ends up actually being the starting running back for Kansas City, I've said this the past couple live streams, I am just going to be losing a crap ton of money. But let's go Julio Jones. I mean, with Julio Jones, we need a wide receiver. He falls 14 picks past his ADP. Yeah, that's essentially all the analysis I got for you. I mean, here with Julio, obviously going to be more exciting in a best ball format. We expect that he misses sometimes, but gives us some random spike weeks. Okay. After we take Julio Jones, you have Jahan Dotson, Justin Fields, Tua Tagovailoa all off the board here. Great for us to see these quarterbacks gone. And usually round 12, this is where we begin to look at tight ends. It's where we begin to look at tight ends. And obviously, there's a tight end that does correlate with our quarterback here. But what I would say is, I think the Albert O and I know not too many people are going to agree with this. And we are going to take Cole Kmet over Albert O here. And obviously, we have Russell Wilson. I think 9 times out of 10, if you have Russell Wilson, you want to go ahead. You want to take Albert O. But hear me out on this. If we're looking at Cole Kmet with an ADP of 120, I think that we are going to be, getting maybe a unique value that most people aren't going to have access to if we're going to be looking at just the context of this overall tournament-style contest. And also, when we took Russell Wilson, I would be much more incentivized to go through and draft Albert O if we did not already have Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. In my opinion, with that double stack, I'm not necessarily worrying too much about getting correlation with Denver Broncos pass catchers later on, whereas we will be completely fine taking a Cole Kmet, 15 picks passes ADP here at 135. Let me know if you think I should have taken Albert O. I mean, it is what it is at this point. But I think those 2 picks were pretty easy based on the value that they represented. Okay, so let's see what Derek said about Isaiah Pacheco, if he did say something. Says he's getting real snaps with Mahomes. He's going to play a lot this year. Hopefully not. Hopefully we get a lot of Clyde Edwards-Helaire from my bank account. If we get Isaiah Pacheco firing up as the running back 1, even if he's just a large part of a committee, it's going to be a tough day for the Flock Network LLC. I'll tell you, it's going to be a very tough day for the Flock Network LLC. Okay. Now we have Isaiah Spiller, Brian Robinson off the board here in the middle of the 12th. And Alex says he took Sutton. Yeah, guys. I mean, if y'all haven't noticed, I have not been as harsh on the Courtland Sutton ADP since the Tim Patrick injury. Like, my issue with Sutton is if you were looking at all the mouths to feed in Denver, if we were looking at historically, Courtland Sutton's production versus his cost and the projection that we had with Tim Patrick in the red zone, I thought that Sutton was the worst pick in fantasy at the end of the 3rd round before the Tim Patrick injury. I still think it's a bad pick. I don't want to come out here and say I love this Courtland Sutton value. But when he is sitting there, best player available according to ADP, when we think that we can get greedy and get Jalen Waddle at the beginning of the 4th, sometimes we're going to go swing for the fences, try to get that greedy value a little bit later on. And I think it did actually very much work out for us with this build, where we were able to get Jerry Jeudy in the 4th and then followed up with Russell Wilson, which there were teams taking Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy at the 3-4 turn before the Tim Patrick injury, despite Tim Patrick leading the Denver Broncos in touchdowns over the past 2 years at the wide receiver position. And I thought that was egregious. But at this point, I think it'll be fine. Now we have CSU Ram taking that double stack in there with the Minnesota Vikings offense, getting Irv Smith Jr. and KJ Osborne to pair up with Kirk Cousins a little later on. Obviously, at this point, we are still hoping that we get quarterbacks off the board. We have Russell Wilson and we have Joe Burrow on this team. We want to see quarterbacks get drafted. Wolf coming out. Thank you, my friend. Says, what's your ideal 2-3 turn pick at 1 and 2 in a league where you start 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex? Torn if I get Mark Andrews in a wide receiver and reach on J.K. Dobbins as a running back 2. I would definitely say go through, get Mark Andrews in this format. I mean, Mark Andrews in this format is going to give you a significant edge just based on the overall raw percentage of points that the tight end position is going to be putting up with only 1 flex spot. Now, if we're going to look at some running backs in this range, obviously, I will go through, I'll show you some running backs that we're looking at that were there in this draft. Now, of course, you shouldn't necessarily have as high of expectations on the running backs that are going to be available there in a casual format at the 2-3 turn, because running backs are going to be pushed down a little bit in favor of wide receivers for underdogs since you start 3 of these receivers. Okay. So now we have Robert Tonyan, pick 151, Kenny Golladay. Okay. Albert O off the board. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to take Jacoby Myers. I don't necessarily think that we think about this too much. I mean, with Jacoby Myers, he should be getting a considerable amount of targets. And at the same time, maybe you can make the argument, Mason, you want to go KJ Hamler. You have Russell Wilson. As we were discussing previously, when we already had the double stack with Sutton as well as Jerry Jeudy, I'm not dying to go out of our way to go through and bring in that 4th Denver Broncos player. I think we're kind of fine at 3 unless we get a guy to value. So we will take Myers here, 154. If Hamler were to make it back to us at 159, we probably go ahead. We probably take KJ Hamler. But if not, there are a couple other players that I'm completely fine with in this range. Okay. So let's move this back around. So we have Jamal Williams, a 155. KJ Hamler, Wan'Dale Robinson off the board at 156, 157. So honestly, there are two players that I'm going to be looking at. These would be the two names. It would either be Mike Gesicki or Jameson Williams. Let's go ahead. I guess we're going to go ahead and take Gesicki here. What's the report that we have? Plays entire first half. Okay, is this bad? Gesicki brought in 3 of 6 targets for 27 yards, blah, blah, blah. Does not seem great for Gesicki at this point. Let's go ahead. Let's take him. I think a lot of these tight ends are in the same range. I mean, when we're getting Gesicki to pair up with Cole Kmet, I think that we are going to have respectable tight end output every single week. We are getting him to find value. Yeah, but I think this draft will be very telling in the tight ends that we have available to us later on. Like if we're going to look at, say, Noah Fant or Tyler Higbee sitting there at pick 178 for us, I probably am going to really regret this Gesicki pick where we decided to pass on Jameson Williams. But now that we see Gerald Everett off the board, pick 160, maybe this Gesicki pick was completely fine because you're looking at even like a Robert Tonyan already going significantly before ADP at 151. But the recovery coming out, thank you, my friend, says, a flock, need your advice. Got offered CeeDee Lamb and Zach Ertz for Mike Williams and Darren Waller. I have Dak Prescott. Should I do it? The stack sounds nice. Personally, I would. I mean, if we're assuming it's a shallow redraft format, it is tough moving off that elite level tight end in a Darren Waller. But what I would say is if your team's going to be an active league, which I'm assuming that it is, if you're already getting offers on August 21st, I'm assuming that you're playing in a very active league where we could potentially go through and look to sell Zach Ertz high at the beginning portion of the season when we have no DeAndre Hopkins, presumably fueling Zach Ertz to a very hot start. I like the idea of it. Panda says, do you only do best ball or do you do head-to-head leagues as well? So if y'all don't know, I'm in like 25 plus dynasty leagues that obviously submit starting lineups for every single week. So because I'm in 25 plus dynasty leagues where I have to submit those starting lineups, we have to do that weekly in-season management. And at the same time, I live stream for 4 hours every single night during the season. And I live stream like for the 4 hours leading up till kickoff. It's very hard for me to go through and submit 50 starting lineups and do 50 waiver wire claims before the season. So what I like to do is I like to have that large exposure to our dynasty drafts where we are having that weekly time commitment going through and submitting lineups and making waiver wire claims. Whereas when it comes to those redraft formats, I will go through and I'll pick up just a couple of those in leagues that I really want to focus in on, care about. But it's hard for me to go and pick up 20 extra redraft leagues just because mainly those live streams that I have to do on Sunday mornings. Sunday morning live streams are really tough for me to be able to just track the injury news and be able to adjust 50 lineups leading to kickoff. Okay. So now we have Raheem Mostert at 169. We do want to bring in another running back. I mean, at the running back position, we are going to be fine with where we currently stand in Barkley, J.K. Dobbins, David Montgomery, as well as Kenneth Walker. I don't think we're dying to have more running backs. Well, at the very minimum, we're going to need one more guy. So David Njoku goes off the board, pick 170. I would have been very upset if we did not have David Njoku making it back to us at 178. Okay, what's happening with Winston? Why is Winston falling so far here? Okay, so essentially Winston participated in practice. That's the report we're getting today. I mean, maybe there's something else that I'm not looking at, and that's why Jameis Winston's falling. And real quick, guys, if y'all have not done so already, please go down there, drop a like on the live stream. If we hit 850 likes, which I believe we are 75 likes away. If we get another 75 likes in the live stream, we are going to fire up another draft for everybody in the stream. But what we really need to hope for is we really need to hope that we get a Jameis Winston pick off the board here. And what's the report we had with Tyrion Davis-Price? Marcus Mariota. Okay, so Tyrion Davis-Price, efficient in second preseason game, rushed 10 times for 41 yards in Saturday's preseason win over the Vikings. He added 1 reception for 6 yards. Davis-Price was the third back on the field after Trey Sermon and JaMychal Hasty, though he has still appeared on the team's first drive. He tallied only 1 additional carry in the first half, though he ripped off a series of impressive gains that went for 14, 12, and 6 yards later in the contest. Honestly, don't really care about the actual performance. More like, where is he in terms of the pecking order? And it sounds like shouldn't be too excited about seeing Tyrion Davis-Price with these starters. Okay, Van Jefferson off the board. Crap. I think we are going to go ahead. We're going to take Noah Fant as a third tight end. Like, we waited very long to get our tight ends. Pick 135, 159, 178. I mean, I think that this is a point where we can say that the tight ends like a Noah Fant from a raw points per game perspective, probably going to be comparable to some of the other wide receivers that we're going to see at this range. So if we're going to be bringing in a Noah Fant at this point, I think that this is a player that could also spike into our flex spots throughout the season. So let's bring in that third tight end. We didn't get an elite level guy. Now, I wonder if this was a clear sign that we should have just passed on Mike Gesicki in the last round, in the 14th, in favor of Jameson Williams. Paris Campbell off the board, 180. Davis Mills, 181. Sit here and think of this. It is difficult to pass on Jameis Winston at 183. 30 picks behind ADP. My lizard brain wants me to do it. My lizard brain wants me to lock in Winston here. Crowder off the board. If we were to not go Jameis Winston, we take J.D. McKissic. Some wide receivers I'm fine with later on. From a construction standpoint, it is so damn difficult to take a third quarterback here. Let's let it run down. Let's get Winston. It's probably a very suboptimal play. Like, if you ask anybody that's smart, I bet you this is just the worst thing you could ever do is go take Jameis Winston in the 16th round here. Of course, I would never do this in a best ball format. Maybe we make the argument that, hell, this is how we sneak a team through to the playoffs that has a unique combo. Say, like, a Joe Burrow goes down for a large portion of the beginning of the season and not many Joe Burrow teams are able to make it through, yada, yada, yada. Maybe we can tell ourselves a story. In reality, it's probably a very bad pick. Okay. So let's move this back around. And the recovery says, my league is a very active, LOL. My other receivers are Deebo Samuel, Brandon Cooks, Adam Thielen, and Robert Woods. What's your outlook for CeeDee Lamb this year? Do you believe? I would say I'm a believer in CeeDee Lamb. It's very hard for me to go out there and say, oh, must draft wide receiver CeeDee Lamb when he goes to the 1-2 turn. Like, in reality, it's already so priced in that CeeDee Lamb is going to have a fantastic season this upcoming year. Now, what I will say is if we're going to go through, if we are going to look at the range of outcomes, he can be a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy. If the Dallas Cowboys continue their same game plan in terms of their pace of play, combined with their passing rate over expectation, because we know that there's going to be so many touches up for grabs in Dallas, so many targets up for grabs in Dallas this season that, yes, I like the idea of going through and making this play. If you already invested into Dak Prescott, like, how the hell does Dak Prescott become an elite level quarterback in fantasy this year if CeeDee Lamb is not a wide receiver 1? I think it'd be very difficult for that to happen. So Watson off the board here, pick 191. And at this point, we're going to need 1 wide receiver and 1 running back to finish this draft off. I honestly like this team. I know obviously it's an unconventional way to build if we're going to be taking a third tight end and a third quarterback here. But I think that maybe because nobody else is doing that this year, if we run into an instance where one of these elite level quarterbacks like a Joe Burrow does go down for a large portion of the season and everybody else who drafted Burrow only went with the 2 QB build, maybe for that final 3-week stretch, Burrow's not necessarily rostered in a ton of those leagues. And at the same time, we could be bringing him in there and seeing an elite spike week or 2. Okay. Well, let's move this down. It looks like we are 25 likes away from firing up another draft. So if you have not done so already, please go down there, drop a like on the stream. And if you want to get into the next draft with us, make sure you go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Link in the live chat, link in the description when you go and sign up for Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK. They will match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. You will get our 2022 fantasy football rankings. You will get our 2022 fantasy football draft guide. And of course, you will support the channel. Okay. So Brevin Jordan, Gus Edwards off the board here. What running backs and receivers are we going to be looking at? I know both players that I would want. Actually, there's one guy that I'd want that's near the top of ADP. The majority of players that I want, honestly, are not anywhere close to the top of ADP, though. Which, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, it's not that big of a deal at all. So Isaiah Likely, a name that I have not heard in quite a while. Obviously, that's a player that we had to cover a lot from a dynasty fantasy football perspective, but a name that I haven't heard too much from a redraft perspective. Derek decides to go Danny Gray to pair up with Trey Lance. So do we have any Sammy Watkins news? Let's go through and let's figure out if we have anything with Watkins here. Okay, it doesn't even matter. Will Fuller is going to be a wide receiver that I think that we can go through and we can draft. Specifically, if we're going to look at a best ball format. Last time we saw Will Fuller, he was the top 10 wide receiver on a points per game basis. Now, it's not necessarily guaranteed to be the case this upcoming season yet again, but let's go ahead. Let's take him here at 202. Okay. So what's the situation in Arizona? Does it actually look like you are going to end up getting, Benjamin as the running back 2 here? Yeah, looks like Benjamin played the first series, Darrell Williams the second. So it does look like Darrell Williams looking like the running back 3 in Arizona. More off the board for Houston. And I'm assuming Marlon Mack is done in Houston as well. Let's go through and try to find this. Do we go ahead, take Marlon Mack here, think that he could potentially be a stopgap for us as we wait to get... Here's what I'm thinking of. It's either McKinnon or Marlon Mack. Or even we'll throw Darrell Williams in the mix. What running back do you want out of this trio? What running back are you wanting here? I'm thinking if we take Marlon Mack, we could potentially have the stopgap until we get Kenneth Walker a little later on. Looks like most people are saying Mack. Yeah, most people are saying Marlon Mack. I know we have some votes for Mark Ingram. I'm never taking Mark Ingram here. We weren't doing that before. We're not doing it now. I very much like this team. It does come down to, can we get one of those wide receiver breakouts with the Julio, Jacoby Myers, Will Fuller? But in reality, I think that this is a team that is going to have a very high ceiling if we end up hitting on that Denver Broncos breakout, which I think is a possibility in reality. So let's go through. Let's show this off. So, of course, we are drafting at the dreaded 110. I think this is one of my better drafts from the 110. I like this draft from the 110. David Bell goes directly after us. David Bell was the wide receiver I thought that we were going to be getting there in the 17th round before Will Fuller fell. The question is, in reality, we take Jameis Winston before A.J. Green. Are we ever sitting here going, oh my gosh, this team would have had such a higher ceiling if we had A.J. Green or Zay Jones, but other than Jameis Winston? I don't necessarily think so. But let me go through. Let me set up another draft for everybody here. I do see that we have some donation questions that I need to answer in the live chat as well. But first, let me set up a private draft. So this is not going to be a draft in the public lobby. It's going to say $3 draft here, and you go and join that. Of course, we just got that high stakes draft underway. Maybe we can get another one going in the live stream later on, dependent on how many people are out here and if we are having one hell of a time. But let me send out $3 draft here. Okay, so just sent that out in the live chat. And Young Glim coming out says, Dalvin Cook or Stephon Diggs, the 109 in a 12-team PPR format. Assuming it's going to be a shallow format where we only start 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex. In reality, wide receivers are not going to be valuable there, where we should probably just go ahead. We probably should just take the running back in Dalvin Cook. And then if we're moving on past this, Ryan says, the things I would do for 2015 Sammy Watkins. Yeah, I mean, 2015 Sammy Watkins, 2014 Odell Beckham Jr., even a 2015 Brandon Cooks. Those were the days. Those were the days. Or 2015 Allen Robinson. I mean, if y'all don't know, I started playing Dynasty Fantasy Football, where I started just obsessing about fantasy football 365 days a year, including the rookies coming into the NFL back in 2014. So I have a very strong bias, a very strong soft spot for all those wide receivers that were drafted in 2014. The guys like Sammy Watkins, Allen Robinson, Brandon Cooks. I mean, so many top players. Odell Beckham Jr., Jordan Matthews was in the class. There were a lot of fun, exciting guys. And Mike Evans, I don't know if we already said him. John coming out says, half PPR trade Christian McCaffrey and Breece Hall for Dalvin Cook and Saquon Barkley. Yeah, I think it's a fair deal. If we're looking at the gap that you're getting from a Saquon Barkley and a Breece Hall, go through, make it. Okay. Now, C6K on the clock. I'm assuming we get JT, CMC, Jefferson, Kupp, Chase, and we go, well, we'll go Eckler. We'll go Eckler in this draft. Thomas asking if we've done the Mastiff draft. Sadly, I don't think I can do the Mastiff draft, guys. I mean, if you go through, the Mastiff draft's $2,500. I can either do one of those drafts or I can do 10. And I repeat, I can do 10 $250 big dog drafts on the live stream. I think it's a lot more fun for me to get in those $250 drafts on the live stream. And if I can do 10 of them, I'm doing that. Keep in mind, the $2,500 draft is a slow draft as well. So I'd be in that draft for like the next 2-3 weeks. Okay, so some people saying that the draft link is not working. My friend, considering the fact that we have 11 people in here drafting with us from that link, I am assuming that it is working. Maybe you joined too late. Maybe there was something wrong with the Wi-Fi. I don't know, but it clearly worked. Now, after we take Austin Eckler, you have Stephon Diggs, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris. A team at pick 11 decides to pair up Adams and CeeDee Lamb there on the turn. So let's make sure that we follow that team throughout the draft to see what they decide to do at the 3-4 turn. A couple teams pairing up running backs here. Let's pull this back around. Oh, I should have highlighted Derrick's team at the end of that last draft just because Derrick had some crazy, and I repeat, crazy values falling to him. Let's move this over. Assuming at this point, Kamara goes off the board at 17. So we are going to get a value with either Debo or Aaron Jones. Let's see who is going to end up being. Flock of Flames. This is a team that decided to go Austin Eckler in the last round. So they go Aaron Jones. We're going to take Debo Samuel here. So if we were going to look at the inverse of what we could have potentially done, obviously every draft room is going to be different. Hindsight's 2020. But what would you rather have through the first two rounds? Would you rather have the combo of, say, if we would have gotten Stephon Diggs at 6, Stephon Diggs and Javonte Williams, or Austin Eckler and Debo Samuel? I'm imagining most people would prefer Austin Eckler and Debo Samuel, but let me know what you're thinking. Okay. Derek says he likes his team a lot. Let me go through and let me check out Derek's team for the $250 draft. I'll read that out loud, of course. I know a lot of people aren't going to like our team. I think that we may run into issues where we don't have enough wide receiver depth once we get to that tournament stretch, but still, I think that it is a team that it's hard to pass on Winston at pick 183. It really is. So our team, we had Russell Wilson, Burrow, Jameis Winston at quarterback. At running back, we had Saquon Barkley, J.K. Dobbins, David Montgomery, Kenneth Walker, Marlon Mack. At wide receiver, we had Devontae Adams, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Tyler Boyd, Julio Jones, Jacoby Myers, Will Fuller. And at tight end, we had Kmet, Gesicki, and Noah Fant. Okay. Fantasy Football Dog Pound says, when they dip, I duck. Monty Jacobs Penny. Interesting little phrase you're coining there, my man. I don't exactly know what it means. Now we have Kyle Pitts off the board. So let's go ahead. You know what? It's a $3 draft. We don't have to worry about our exposures. We don't have to worry about any of that. Let's just draft how I would. Let's take DJ Moore, pick 30. I have DJ Moore ranked before Michael Pittman. Okay, so let's go through. Let's check out Derek's draft. Derek has Herbert and Lance at quarterback. Obviously exciting. At running back, Pollard, Hunt, James Cook, Isaiah Pacheco, Isaiah Spiller. Wide receiver, Kupp, Debo, Evans, Gabriel Davis, Russell Gage, Jameson Williams, Danny Gray, Ty Montgomery. At tight end, Henry, Higbee, Taysom Hill. Derek, let me know. Are you drafting a decent amount of Taysom Hill? Are you going are you going for Taysom Hill in a lot of these drafts? Okay. So after we take DJ Moore, you have Michael Pittman falling to pick 33. In my opinion, that's about where Michael Pittman should go off the board. I know everybody loves Michael Pittman as the next top 5 wide receiver in fantasy. Hell, if Michael Pittman ends up being the next top 5 wide receiver in fantasy, I'll be fine going through and just losing money on him. He has an ADP of like wide receiver 10. Like, even if he hits as wide receiver 12, in reality, are you profiting much off of it? Dan says, I got Michael Pittman at pick 50. Michael Pittman at pick 50, if that is where he was going in your draft, I would be like everybody else saying, oh yeah, Michael Pittman, great breakout. Yes, 100%. You need to go through and draft him everywhere. And reality on Underdog, I guess maybe these drafters are a little more tuned in because he does have an ADP sitting there around pick 28, 29. And Jack coming out says, Swift and Jalen Waddle for Austin Eckler and Adam Thielen, 12-team PPR double flex league. Now, I would say the majority of people in the live chat are probably going to go through and they are probably going to decide to just take Austin Eckler and Adam Thielen. I am having a hard time with it because I am very biased and I love Jalen Waddle this year. I think that Jalen Waddle is a clear tier ahead of Adam Thielen, but if we're assuming that this is a shallow redraft format, we should go ahead, just always take the best player. Always take the best player. Let's just take Austin Eckler. Justin Herbert off the board, pick 41. Let's move this over. So far we have Eckler, Deebo Samuel, and DJ Moore at wide receiver. So we're going to be fine with either Hollywood or Ezekiel Elliott here. I'd be a little more excited about Hollywood in this format because y'all need to remember this is going to be that private draft where we don't have the fantasy football playoffs in this draft like we did in the last one. So here it's just, hell, can you get me points starting in week 1? Give me production right away the second that you step into this offense. Ezekiel Elliott at 43. With Zeke, he does have some serious red flags that I think we at least need to be intellectually honest and look at. I know everybody just wants to say, oh my gosh, if you look at his raw points at the end of every season, I mean, he's been a running back 1, but no, if you look at his points per game, it hasn't been nearly as good over the past 2 years. It has been sitting at the running back 17 from a points per game standpoint. I do think that we get some serious touchdown upside in Dallas, however, just because the offense he's playing in. So I will go ahead. I'll take Ezekiel Elliott at 43. Okay. Hybrid says, how do you keep track of how all your teams are doing? If y'all don't know, Underdog is like very sophisticated. Like on Underdog Fantasy, you can very easily see everything. I mean, you can see even your exposures. So it's really nice. Like, so if I go through and let me read out to y'all the top 5 players that I've invested into this year. So it's really nice. Like, you go to Underdog, guys. You can go through and you can filter out by entry fees. So here, you can see the entry fees, the cost associated with the people that you've drafted. So I'm going to know if I'm having a good year or not when I pull this up and I go, okay, my top 3 guys are Christian Watson, Patrick Mahomes, and Mecole Hardman now. I know it sounds like, oh my gosh, Mason, you're that high on Mecole Hardman. I only have him in 12% of drafts. It's just been, we've been taking him in the high stakes leagues. Let's go through and let's take a J.K. Dobbins here. I mean, going back to what we were discussing earlier, this isn't a tournament style draft. We don't have to consider values, yada, yada, yada. Let's just take the players I like. And I like J.K. Dobbins here, pick 54. But yeah, we only have Mecole Hardman in 12% of leagues. But this is the issue. When, say, you draft in a lot of $3 leagues and then a lot of $250 leagues, and we even had a $1,000 draft this offseason. So if I go through and if I say draft Mecole Hardman in that $1,000 draft, or I draft Christian Watson in that $1,000 draft, or Patrick Mahomes, or Devonta Smith, those were all guys I took in the $1,000 draft. Then all of a sudden we are in a position where those are my most invested into players, even if I'm not necessarily taking them everywhere. So like if we're looking at this, a player that I've drafted in a high percentage of leagues is like a Josh Jacobs, who I have at 17%. But in reality, even if Josh Jacobs is a top 5 player in my percent of leagues that I've drafted him in, he's not even in my top 15 most invested into players based on our entry fees, because I guess we've been taking him in a lot of $5 drafts, a lot of $3 drafts. And it's not like I'm on the clock in a $250 draft going, okay, I need to take Mecole Hardman in this one. No, it's just the way that random variance hits it. Fantasy Football Dog Pound saying he has Darnell Mooney hovering around 27%. Oh, dear God. Okay, so I'm assuming that 99% of people in this live chat right now are drafting on underdog. So please, what I want you all to do is tell me not the most entry fees player that you have, but tell me the highest ownership percentage player that you have. Who is the player that you've drafted the most on underdog? Derek says Kenneth Gainwell 39%, Michael Thomas 33, MVS 29, Pitts 29, Clyde Edwards-Helaire 20. Very interesting to see Marquez Valdes-Scantling that high. Did not expect that. Justin says Naheem Hines 48%, Colin 31%, Deontay Johnson, Neil 60%, Odell. Very interesting, 60% Odell. That is aggressive there, my friend. Let's go ahead. Let's take Elijah Mitchell. 4 running backs so far in this league. It is what it is. We'll figure it out a little later on. And then let's see. Dalton solid. Chris Godwin 35%. T. Higgins 27%. Waddle 28%. Duvernay 41%. If y'all don't know, I actually graduated from the University of Texas, I guess the year after Devin Duvernay. I don't even know if Duvernay, I know Duvernay did graduate. I mean, he definitely was a 4-year player. But anyway, I would see Devin Duvernay at the rec very often. I had a racquetball class at the rec, and of course he'd be in there lifting weights. Sadly, I had like 200 subs on YouTube at that time, so I was too shy, too scared to ask him to come on the podcast. But no, looking back at it, I should have done it. But moving on, we've got Jameson Williams 60%, Michael Carter 33%. Dylan says Waddle and Henderson at 41%. Etienne 25%, Chubb 39%, Nick Chubb. Dear God, James 25%, Boyd. Y'all are willing to go out there and y'all are willing to invest significantly into your players. I mean, I guess I'm just a scared little boy over here where my highest ownership percentage on any individual player is going to be Josh Jacobs and Patrick Mahomes, where they're both at 17%. I'm at 17% for the very most. AJ says, where do I check that again? Okay, so on Underdog, what you're going to do is go to the lobby. You'll just be in the lobby and you'll go to your completed drafts. Click completed there, and then you scroll down. You can go to the 2022 season, click exposure, and then you'll have the entire list. And you can filter it by dollar signs, filter it by ownership percentage. But let's take Amari Cooper here. I mean, if we're going to be looking at Amari Cooper, I think that it would be more intriguing going with a player like Drake London if we are going to be playing in a league where we need to be optimizing for weeks 15, 16, 17. But here we don't have the fantasy football playoffs, so let's just take the veteran. That should be productive day one. Okay. Scott says Team 1 is wild right now. Let's go through. Let's check out Team 1. And dear God, you are right. This is a crazy draft. So far, they have at running back Jonathan Taylor, Leonard Fournette, Nick Chubb. Not going to lie, I've done this before. We've gone through. We've taken that trio of running backs, trying to make it work out, because I do think that those 3 guys are obviously, I mean, you can't call the player at the 101 value, but I do think that you're getting Nick Chubb and Leonard Fournette at strong values. Darren Waller Kittle there at the 4 or 5 turn. I'm not going to lie to you. I love that combo of Darren Waller and George Kittle there in a best ball format. What I'll say is you probably push it a little bit too far when you're at the 6-7 turn and you have the ability to go with a Drake London and a Brandon Ayuk. I feel like if you start through the first 5 rounds, no wide receivers, and then you're still able to come away with Drake London and Brandon Ayuk there as your top 2 guys, it's something you probably just go ahead and do, I mean, pretty much immediately. So I like what they did through the first 5 rounds. I think it was a team with a lot of upside. Very difficult to go through, though, and double tap the quarterback position there. I don't even necessarily know why you're doing it either. I mean, maybe if you would have had like a crazy 2 values like Trey Lance and Jalen Hurts making it, then sure, you go Trey Lance and Jalen Hurts. Like, you're reaching on Brady and Russell Wilson as well. So I don't completely understand it. I love the team through the first 5. But Alan Lazard's still falling. So I guess if Lazard's available to us at 91 when we need a wide receiver, we probably go ahead. We probably take Alan Lazard. Let's see. Diamond decides to go Ramondre Stevenson. I haven't drafted Ramondre Stevenson in a month because I do think this price point is very difficult to pay up for. I was drafting Ramondre Stevenson previous to this, But at this point, it is very difficult. Let's go ahead. Let's take Kadarius Toney as our wide receiver 4. I mean, I think Kadarius Toney is going to be a very easy selection here. If we're looking at his yards per route run, this is a wide receiver that did have elite level traits in his rookie season. Of course, the thing is, can Kadarius Toney stay healthy? Not only can he stay healthy, but at the same time, do we see a realistic ceiling with the New York Giants offense? Don't necessarily know if we can say it for sure that you're going to have Brian Daboll turning this team around, but it is in the range of outcomes. Okay, so let's move this over. After we take Kadarius Toney, you have James Cook, Kareem Hunt off the board. Marquez Valdez-Scantling directly after that. So I'm sure that you had that team there that decided to pass on wide receivers through the first 7 rounds, probably hoping that they were getting like an MVS, making it back to him. It is very difficult because I feel like a lot of the values in this range of the drafts are probably at the running back position, if we're going to be completely honest. So to go through and to take a wide receiver, sometimes it's a very tough thing to do. Now, I've put myself in this position a lot. I don't want to act like I've never put myself in this position to take some guys that you don't necessarily think are the best values of the wide receiver spot here. Okay, but Hunter Renfrow goes at pick 97. I think that's the furthest I've seen Hunter Renfrow fall in a very long time. In my opinion, I actually think Hunter Renfrow is very comparable from someone like Tyler Boyd, where I think I would much prefer to just wait and draft Tyler Boyd at the beginning of the 10th round rather than drafting Hunter Renfrow at the end of the 7th, which is where their ADPs line up. But Hunter Renfrow 97, I'm completely fine with that. Rashad Penny off the board. Let's pull this back around. Okay, so Dawson Knox off. Let's go ahead. Let's take Robert Woods here. I mean, I do prefer Treylon Burks in leagues that have the fantasy football playoffs. But if we're just looking at leagues that don't cumulative scoring 1 through 17, I think Robert Woods will have that larger role at the beginning portion of the season. Points are worth just as much during that time period. So we'll go ahead. We'll take Robert Woods, especially with the report that Treylon Burks is dealing with that nagging injury. So far at the running back position here, we have Austin Eckler, Ezekiel Elliott, J.K. Dobbins, Elijah Mitchell. At wide receiver, we have Deebo Samuel, DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, Kadarius Toney, and Robert Woods. I think it's a fine team. I mean, we weren't necessarily in a position where it was very easy for us to go through and take any of these quarterbacks. Now, hopefully we find some quarterbacks that we like later on. Okay. Now let's move this down. We have Antonio Gibson, pick 106. J Maxing trying to deposit on Underdog, but I'm given no option to add in the code FLOCK. Okay, so it has to be your first account, right? It has to be your first deposit ever on Underdog Fantasy. If you had an Underdog Fantasy account last year, my friend, I'm very sorry you're not going to be able to do it. And you should have that option to put in promo code FLOCK. If you don't have an Underdog account, if it's a new account. If it is a new account, make sure you're going through the link in the live chat. Promo code FLOCK should be automatically applied. I would definitely try to reapply it just in case, though. Okay, Rondale Moore going 110. Let's move this back around. Obviously, we would have been fine with Matthew Stafford making it to us at 115. Difficult for me to take Derek Carr here. In reality, like looking at the Derek Carr price point, very rarely am I even drafting him. Let me see exactly how many leagues I've drafted Derek Carr in. It's just tough when he usually goes about like 12 picks before Rodgers at this point. Obviously, that didn't happen in this league in particular. Cousins off the board. Yeah, I have Derek Carr at only 4% of drafts. I guess I only have Aaron Rodgers in 6%. I guess I'm not taking quarterbacks very often in this range. Garrett Wilson off the board. We're going to go ahead. We're going to reach on Russell Gage here at wide receiver. I mean, I'm completely fine buying into the Russell Gage discount. I mean, I think if we're looking at the wide receivers between Julio Jones and Gage, keep in mind, I drafted Julio at the very end of the 11th round in that last draft. But Russell Gage is, in my opinion, the favorite to be the wide receiver 3 here in Tampa. I mean, it just simply comes down to me, the contract. Let me go ahead. Let me just look at the player getting $30 million freaking dollars. And let's take him. But real quick, if y'all have not done so already, please go down there, drop a like on the live stream. If this live stream hits 700 likes, we are going to fire up another draft after this one. So please Go down there, drop that like. Looks like less than 10% of the people who've watched this live stream have dropped a like yet. What are you doing? Fix your life. Go down there, drop that like. We do these live streams for 3 hours every single night. What else do you want from me? What else do you want? Okay. Landon Places, I used the link, signed up, and deposited. It got matched, but never got the draft guide. Okay, my friend, please go ahead and send me a personal email if you still cannot find the draft guide. Like I said, check your spam, but if you still can't find it, I'd be happy to personally send it to you. You just got to send me an email with the email address you signed up for Underdog Fantasy with. You can find my email address in the description of this live stream. Okay. So we have Melvin Gordon off the board here, pick 122. We still are going to be looking at tight end and quarterback. At some point, we're going to have to take these guys. I mean, there are a couple other values that I kind of like on the board right now, if I'm going to be completely honest. We ended up taking Cole Kmet, I believe, at the beginning of the 12th round in our last draft. LOLG says, someone in my draft just took Michael Pittman over Mike Evans and Tyreek Hill. I can't buy into it. I'm not going to be able to buy into Michael Pittman at that price tag. I know Michael Pittman is everyone's favorite breakout candidate. But in reality, I don't necessarily see the true upside that you're going to have there if you're having to reach that much on him. Okay, so Joshua Palmer off the board. So yeah, Darrell Henderson was going to be the last running back in this range that we would have been fine taking. I mean, with Darrell Henderson, you should have a role on a week-to-week basis in one of the best offenses in the NFL. And then, of course, you're going to have upside for more if Cam Akers were to go down. So a very easy selection that we're going to have with Darrell Henderson at this point. Justin Fields off the board, 127. Let's move this down. We have Rachaad White off the board, 128 here. At this point, we're probably done drafting running backs. I would definitely say that we probably want quarterback and tight end value making it back on the way around. Now, Justin Fields would have been that quarterback that had some rushing upside. I'd have been completely fine drafting in the 12th. At this point, once you have Fields and Tua off the board, I'm not necessarily too interested in any one of these players. It's going to be tough for us. Caden says, Mason, why would you need the 5th running back if you already put so much capital in the position? Because when we're only playing this 12-team private draft, if anything, I'm not necessarily trying to chase the extreme outlier type seasons that you could potentially have if we went a little bit fragile at running back. I think that this is kind of the spot to just raise your median projection, which is something that I always talk about not doing in those tournament drafts. But if we were to do it, I think this is the spot where you want to. So Frymuth off the board, 134. And also, Caden, where else would you have gone? If we don't take Darrell Henderson here, where else? Am I taking Gallup? Is there a wide receiver that we should be very excited about in this range? Okay. So Frymuth off the board here, pick 134. Let's move this back around. DJ Chark, 135. Irv Smith Jr. off the board. So if we're looking at quarterbacks, like it's not like you are getting anything special here with Lauren. So let's go ahead. Let's take Jahan Dotson. I think that's going to be very difficult for us to take another running back in this build when we have Eckler, Zeke, Dobbins, Elijah Mitchell, and Darrell Henderson. If we take Jahan Dotson, I think that we can also be done at wide receiver. And I think from here on out, we can just hammer in quarterback, tight end, tight end, tight end. I think this is 100% a 3 quarterback and a 3 tight end build, which in a tournament style draft, I mean, we actually did that in the last one, but I think that's just because that's how the draft board fell to us, even though I didn't necessarily like doing it. But in a private draft, honestly, I'm going to be a lot more excited about it in that tournament than in that tournament draft. Okay. And of course, it's not something that you would do if you were in a non-best ball league. If you weren't in a best ball league, you would never do that. Okay, so let's move this back around. And Noah coming out, thank you, my friend, says, what's your favorite position what's your favorite positional duo to pick in rounds 1 and 2? In my opinion, if you're looking at the players that are going to be available to you at the beginning of the second versus the end of the second round, you're not necessarily having a very sharp drop off in tiers where it's a very boring answer to give. And obviously it's an answer that you would have given pretty much anytime you were playing football over the past fantasy football over the past 20 years. I like pick 1 and 2. Getting a Jonathan Taylor, getting a Christian McCaffrey, and then still having access to like a tight end on the way back around like Mark Andrews in the second. I think that start makes so much sense from a shallow redraft perspective that it's something that you almost just kind of have to do. And what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to take Lawrence. We don't have a stack with Lawrence here. It's not the end of the world. We still need another tight end later on, so we could go ahead. We could get Evan Ingram. But with Lawrence, he does have some rushing upside. We will take him. I mean, we took Jameis Winston in the last draft to pick 183. I'm fine with Winston here if we would have taken Michael Thomas earlier on. If we would have taken Chris Olave earlier on. If we would have taken Jarvis Landry earlier on. If we would have taken Alvin Kamara earlier on. But yeah, I think Lawrence is the call. LOLG says, guy just took Sutton over Mark Andrews. I've lost all hope, Mason. Yeah, I mean, to take Sutton over Andrews, that is pretty damn aggressive. Okay, KJ Hamler off the board here, 151. I mean, the more of these running backs and receivers we see get drafted, probably the better for us. What's very interesting here is you do end up with Albert O off the board at 131 in this draft. And if we remember the last draft, Albert O legitimately made it to pick 153. You've had some reports, especially Albert O played the entire preseason game for the Denver Broncos when the rest of the starters did not. So, of course, that is concerning. That is going to be something that we need to continue to monitor. But interesting that in this draft, Alberto doesn't fall at all, whereas the last one he fell rounds. Now, Tyler Higbee goes 154. Now, at this point, I think we're in a fine position. We're in a fine position. We don't need to overreact with anything. And also, please, guys, if you haven't already, if somehow you're a hater of the live stream and you haven't dropped a like yet, drop a like on the stream. We are 180 likes away from firing up another draft after this one. If we were to get in another draft after this one, it would not be another high stakes draft. It would just be another $3 private league where I would send that link out in the live chat for everybody. Okay, so let's move this back around. Jamal Williams, 158. Hunter Henry, 159. I think at this point, if we were looking at a position that we'd want, we probably want to start bringing in tight ends here. We don't have a single tight end on this build. If we were looking at Matt Ryan doesn't really do anything for me. I mean, if we're comparing him to some of these other quarterbacks that you're going to have later on, like a Matt Ryan and a Mac Jones, realistically speaking, what's the difference between those two guys? What is the difference between Matt Ryan and Mac Jones? Or even a Matt Ryan and, like, I hate to say this, Matt Ryan and Baker Mayfield. What's the freaking difference from a fantasy football perspective? Let's go ahead. Let's get David Njoku here. I mean, with David Njoku, I think that this is going to be a tight end that obviously you're more excited about near the end of the season when you could get Deshaun Watson coming back in. I mean, with Deshaun Watson, well, yes, I think that maybe we see the overall, just call it, scheme of the Cleveland Browns change. We should have so many more trips to the red zone, so much more upside in general for this Cleveland Browns team that I am going to be completely fine just raising the expectations for almost everybody across the board in Cleveland when we get Watson back in. Okay. So let's move this down. Now, Noah Fant, Hayden Hurst go directly at the end of the 14th here. We took Noah Fant at the end of the 15th in that last draft that we were in. I mean, I'm completely fine with the Noah Fant selection. Obviously, Noah Fant in a horrendous situation. But at the same time, this is a tight end that we can at least admit the talent's off the charts. Like, you cannot be more excited about the talent that you have with Noah Fant than any other tight end in this range. He's significantly better than guys like Hayden Hurst, Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett, Hunter Henry, Robert Tonyan. I mean, at least if we're looking at his prospect profile that he had coming out of school. Keep in mind, this is a player that played at the same Iowa school as the TJ Hawkinson, and the majority of people, including myself, thought that Noah Fant was going to be the tight end 1 coming out of that 2019 draft class the year before they did back in 2018. And he's been good when he got to the NFL as well. It's not like he was just a player hyped in college. Okay, Galladay just plummeting here. Galladay has just been plummeting. But we need another tight end. We have Tony. We need to take 3 quarterbacks. We need to take 3 tight ends. We took Trevor Lawrence earlier on. Let's take Evan Ingram here, pick 174. It's not that exciting. It is what it is. It's not that exciting. It is what it is. And real quick, we are 140 likes away from firing up another draft after this one. So if you are not dropping a like on the live stream, no idea what you were doing, fix your life, go down there, drop a like on the stream. Just Sherman coming out says, a Dynasty Superflex traded Tom Brady 2 future first for Joe Burrow. Now I have Lance Burrow, Kenny Pickett, Goff, and I also have Najee Harris, Breece Hall, Elijah Mitchell, Darren Waller, DJ Moore, and Brandon Ayuk. Honestly, I like the idea. I mean, obviously, this is going to be a stacked team. I hope this is a 12-team Superflex format where we can say that there is going to be a limited supply of those quarterbacks where we can easily go through and flip one of these guys for an elite level wide receiver or running back if we wanted to through trade. But yeah, good deal. I mean, I think that it is probably a smart time period to go out and just get out from underneath the Tom Brady investment you have in Dynasty if we're able to get that long-term cornerstone asset there into Joe Burrow. Okay. So now we have Sammy Watkins, Mac Jones here, 181, 182. At this point, we're still looking at quarterbacks and tight ends. QBs, tight ends are the guys we want to go with. Now, if we're looking at Ryan Tannehill, Tannehill will fit that stack with us with Robert Woods. I think it will be a natural pick as well. And that is a fine value, especially as a quarterback too in a best ball format. And there is a tight end that I'm completely fine getting in the 18th round as well. So we can go with Tannehill at 187 and then be completely fine. Okay, so AJ Green off the board, 184 here. Probably fine for us. I mean, Marlon Mack goes in the 16th in this draft. That makes me feel better about my selection of taking Marlon Mack. Did we take him in the 17th? No, we took him in the 18th round of the last draft. We took Marlon Mack in the 18th round of the last one. So we are going to go ahead. We're going to take Tannehill here at the middle of the 16th. We still need to get one more tight end and one more quarterback with this build. So at this point, we have Austin Eckler, Ezekiel Elliott, J.K. Dobbins, Elijah Mitchell, Darrell Henderson at running back. And then at wide receiver, we have Deebo Samuel, DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, Kadarius Toney, Robert Woods, Russell Gage, Jahan Dotson. I think we're still fine at receiver. And especially if we can make our next 2 plays at quarterback and tight end, I will be very excited. But Ryan says, does your draft guide specify PPR? Yes, our draft guide is for PPR formats. Our draft guide, yes, you can get it by signing up to Underdog Fantasy. Our draft guide's not a best ball draft guide. It's not an Underdog Fantasy draft guide. It is just for your regular PPR redraft league. Okay, it looks like we're about 90 likes away from firing up another draft. 2 rounds away from this draft ending, 90 likes away from getting another one going. Like I said, if we get another one going, it wouldn't be another high stakes draft. It would instead just be a regular private draft. That way you can get in on the live stream. Okay. So now we have Davis Mills, Baker Mayfield off the board, 191, 193. Here, if we're going to be looking at a Deshaun Watson, Watson's not going to be someone that I'm looking at in this format in particular where we don't have the fantasy football playoffs. We don't have the incentive structure to be going through and to be firing up just the highest ceiling possible for the final 3-week stretch. We want points throughout the entire course of the season. So with no fantasy football playoffs and just who can score the most points throughout the entire year, it almost makes Deshaun Watson undraftable for us. But dear God, Carson Wentz off the board, 195. Carson Wentz is going to be the quarterback that we really wanted. Caden on the clock. Let's see what Caden decides to do. I'm assuming he goes quarterback. He only has Lamar. Figgy Small says, drop Austin Hooper for Irv Smith Jr., or do I just stream tight into this point? 100% go out there and pick up Irv Smith Jr. I mean, if we're going to be looking at the adjustments that you have from that Minnesota Vikings passing offense being a more concentrated, I don't want to say even efficient, a more pass-happy team overall. And if we're going to be looking at Adam Thielen being a 32-year-old wide receiver coming off an injury, and on top of this, with Irv Smith Jr., this is an extremely young player that was still having to compete with Tyler Conklin and Kyle Rudolph. Last time we saw him healthy, obviously both those guys are both off the roster now. I think Irv Smith Jr. is in a completely different tier if we are going to be comparing him to an Austin Hooper. So 100% go pick up Irv Smith Jr. And we are 70 likes away on the live stream from firing up another draft after this one. So if you have not done so already, please go down there, drop a like. If you don't want to see another draft, it is what it is. Maybe we cut this one a little bit early and save our energy for tomorrow night. Sorry about that, everyone. I am so sorry about that. Let me move. I meant to move this over here so y'all can see what's going on here in the 18th round. Okay. So Tyquan Thornton off the board, 206. We're going to be looking at tight end. Now, my initial plan before we had teams going out there and reaching on Carson Wentz, taking him from us, was to go Carson Wentz in the 17th and to grab Logan Thomas here in the 18th. But it looks like you've had Jonnu Smith getting some hype as of late. So we have Jonnu Smith logging 16 snaps on offense in Friday's 20-10 preseason win over the Panthers. He was listed in the starting lineup along fellow tight end Devin, blah, blah, blah. Didn't record a target in the contest during his abbreviated time on the field. But as week one approaches, he's expected to see a share of looks from Mac Jones while being part of a 1-2 tight end combo that will also feature Hunter Henry. It is interesting to go out there and maybe make the bet in on Jonnu Smith a year later when obviously it didn't work out last season. Now, Trey Sermon off the board, 209. I don't think I've drafted Trey Sermon once this year. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think I've drafted Trey Sermon in a single one of these. Obviously, a player surging in the right direction now. I mean, maybe everybody was just a year too early with Trey Sermon. Logan Thomas is just usually such an easy pick here. Kenny Pickett off the board. Let's go ahead. Let's take Jonnu Smith. I don't have any strong feelings. We just need a tight end that's going to be able to cycle through this starting lineup for us. I think that if we're comparing him to other guys like a David Njoku, like an Evan Ingram, it's going to be completely fine. Let's take him. It is what it is. Okay. So we are 30 likes away from firing up another draft. If you have not done so already, go down there, drop a like on this live stream. I'm assuming that there's probably 30 of y'all in here that have not dropped that like. Maybe y'all are sickos wanting to take this down to the very last second and hit that buzzer beater, but it is what it is. We go Jonnu Smith to 211. Donovan Peoples-Jones off the board here. So we have a lot of Cleveland Browns going. I mean, with Cleveland right now, I actually think that a lot of these guys are just completely fine values. If you're going to be looking at like David Bell, for example, my opinion, there's no better value than 18th round David Bell. Now, of course, we can't take him. We had to go through and we had to take quarterbacks and tight ends with our last 6 picks. But it looks like we just did hit 700 likes on the stream. So, of course, thank you all so much for going down there, dropping that like. Let me go through and let me pull up our next draft. Like I said, just going to be another private draft. Actually, we have 800 people out here. And the big dog, the $250 draft is about to fill up. Like, I don't think we can do these that much longer, maybe another week or two. So let's just see how many spots are available. Okay, 7 spots available. It's not going to fill anytime soon. We will leave this. I'll set up that $3 private draft for y'all. I just wanted to see if we could join that and have only like 1 spot open and we could just fire up that high stakes draft real quick. Okay. So let's go through and let's fire up this private draft. Grabbing this link, it's going to say $3 draft. And it's going to be in that live chat. Okay, we just sent out that private link out there in the live chat. You're going to see that this gets filled up in 5 seconds. And of course, if you are new to the live stream, if you do not know what we are doing right now, I'm assuming you've been living under a rock. Maybe you're from Mars. God knows where you've been. We're drafting on Underdog Fantasy. We do this every single night, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 real money fantasy football drafts. And if you want to get in our next draft, I got great news for you. You can still do that. All you got to do is go to the link in the live chat that says join our next draft here. Go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. These are leagues that are best ball. No time commitment at all during the season. At all. So you can add this on to the leagues that you truly care about. Outside of that, your main redraft format that maybe you're doing with your friends. And when you sign up with promo code FLOCK, because I busted my ass to get you this, when you make your first deposit, promo code FLOCK, minimum of a $10 deposit, you are going to get our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide. I did everything in my power to get you that draft guide for the cheapest price possible. A $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy, promo code FLOCK. And at the same time, they match that deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. So it's essentially free. 300-page draft guide, $10. Draft with us. Get our rankings. Have some freaking fun in the public lobby with your friends or with us in the live stream, whatever you want to do. But Taylor CMC, Justin Jefferson off the board here with the first 3 picks. Not a surprise in the slightest. I mean, if we were going to go through, project out what we have at pick 11. Honestly, pick 11 sucks. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not excited about picking at 11, but in reality, because this is not that $250 league, it's a $3 league, I'm not going to be crying about it because what I want to be able to do is I want to use this as practice. This is how I think a lot of y'all should go get in Underdog Fantasy and use these drafts as practice. Because if we can figure out a strategy that we feel comfortable about from the 11 spot in the $3 draft and we can implement that in high stakes leagues, I think we will be better drafters overall. Scott says, is there a way to get the guide without Underdog? Yes, on flockfantasy.com. You can find the link in the live chat. You can find that in the description of the video as well. And if you purchase the guide from flockfantasy.com, use promo code FLOCK and you will get that discount. So no matter what you're doing, use promo code FLOCK. And now Stephon Diggs going at 9. I think that we honestly really liked what we had with a Davante Adams build at the very end of the first round in that last draft. Now, of course, if Derrick Henry falls to us at pick 11, we go Derrick Henry, but that doesn't happen. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to take Davante Adams at 11. And I think this will set us up with the ability to take a running back here at pick 14. Or, you know what? No, let's try this. Let's try this. CeeDee Lamb, Davante Adams through the first 2 rounds. I would not do this if it was not for the fact that you have to start 3 wide receivers. Going back to what we were discussing with the video earlier this morning, understanding how to adjust your league format is going to be something that is so damn important. And here, because you have to start 3 wide receivers and it's best ball, I mean, the wide receivers across the board are going to slide up draft boards, where I think that we can use that as a tie break. If we would have had a Joe Mixon, if we would have had a Najee Harris fall to us, we would have gone running back here. But no, instead, let's just take Davante Adams and CeeDee Lamb, see if we can make this work on the way back around, which I'm confident that we'll be able to. I'm confident we will be able to. Oh my gosh. God, I feel so dehydrated. I have no idea why. Now, Deebo Samuel goes directly after us. Very interesting to see Deebo there before the top-end running backs like a DeAndre Swift, like a Saquon Barkley. Very rarely are you getting that start of Deebo Samuel and Derrick Henry. I guess, actually, it's not that rare because you can go through and you can take Derrick Henry at pick 8. I guess you can get Derrick Henry at pick 8 and then Deebo Samuel fall into at 17. I mean, in the first draft of the live stream, the $250 draft we had today, Derrick ended up getting freaking Cooper Kupp at 6, and then Deebo Samuel making it back to him at 19. And then Mike Evans making it back to him at 30. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. So Mike Evans, Nick Chubb off the board. Nick Chubb goes a little bit early here, but to be honest, I'm not complaining. I think this is in reality about where Nick Chubb should go. And this coming from someone who's made the argument over the past 2 years that Nick Chubb has been a committee running back that has been one of the worst picks in fantasy because he's been going in round 1. But now that you're getting him at this point, at the 2-3 turn, going to be completely fine with it. Yeah, Tyreek Hill and Mark Andrews fall into that Jonathan Taylor team at 1. I think you should be very excited about that start as well. Okay, so Leonard Fournette off the board, pick 27. Very rarely are you getting Leonard Fournette at the beginning of the 3rd round. Usually you have Fournette at the end of the 2nd. and you have Nick Chubb going at the end of, the beginning of the third. So this is a start that you have relatively often, just usually, it's a swap between Nick Chubb and Leonard Fournette at those picks. Zest says, someone in my draft picked Justin Herbert at 5. Okay, my friend, so I guess you just got very lucky. I guess you got in the right draft room. It would be nice drafting with people that are going Justin Herbert at pick 5. And imagine following that up with a Joshua Palmer in the second round. It would be nice to be in those draft rooms and just have that free money, but sadly, that's never happening to us. Okay, so let's see what Bedrow does, as well as Fantasy Dog Pound here with the next 2 picks. I'd imagine you just get Josh Allen and Mike Williams off the board in whatever order. Very, very rarely are you seeing like a Mike Williams fall this far. Yeah, so that doesn't happen. I think that we go ahead, we take Jalen Waddle. If we're going to be looking at some of these running backs, it'd be difficult for Sticky Kush to decide to go running back here on the turn when he decided to take Najee Harris and Joe Mixon in the first and second round. So I'm almost positive they would have taken Jalen Waddle. There is a teardrop after Jalen Waddle for me with these other wide receivers on the board. So let's lock in our guy and then essentially just get a running back. Now, James Conner goes 36. Do we try to really mix it up here? Do we do something that we wouldn't otherwise go for? Yeah, it's a $3 draft. It's a $3 draft. Let's go get our guys. Let's try to mix it up. We're picking at 11. I want to try to figure out some new things. I want to test out some new draft strategies. And let's try to go 4 wide receivers in a row from the 11 spot. Very rarely is this something that I look to do because usually at the beginning of the 4th, I find myself drafting a running back. I think that a lot of these wide receivers are all the same. But in the $3 draft, let's test it out. That way, next time we're in a 250 and we are in an awkward spot here at 10, 11, 12, we know what to do. Okay. Tony says, how do I join this draft? Okay, so just go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code FLOCK when you sign up for Underdog Fantasy, and you make your first deposit. You'll get our draft guide. You'll get our rankings, and they'll match your first deposit, so it's essentially free for you to try out. But once you have the Underdog account, if we're going to be setting up these private drafts, I'm going to set up a private draft on my end. I'm going to send a new link out in the live chat, and I'll say this out loud in the live stream when I'm doing it. I'm going to say $3 draft incoming, and then in the chat, you'll see $3 draft here, and then a link. You click that link, and then you're in our private draft room. Okay. So we have Ezekiel Elliott, Travis Etienne, Breece Hall, Cam Akers going 4 running backs in a row here at the very end of the 4th round. Like usually I never go with this strategy through the first 4. I just want to test it out. I want to see what running back values that we're going to get on the way back around. Sometimes you get a J.K. Dobbins at the end of the 5th. You get a David Montgomery at the beginning of the 6th. I believe that's what happened to us in our $250 draft. And then if we're also going to be looking at the running backs we could have later on as well. You could even look at like a Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the beginning of the 8th round for us. And I think that we have a pretty good feel on what Sticky Kush next to us is going to be able to do because they only have 1 wide receiver. I feel like they are going to be in a position where they're having to push up these wide receivers. They draft with us a decent amount. They know the value of the position. But Justin Herbert falls to pick 53. We got Justin Herbert in the live stream yesterday about at this point as well. I believe Derek just got Justin Herbert in the middle of the 5th round in that $250 draft at the very beginning of the live stream. So very interesting that Herbert has been consistently falling to the 5th round now. I don't necessarily understand why, if I'm going to be completely honest. It's not like anything's changed in his situation. You have Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray going off the board a little bit earlier than usual. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing at all. Like, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, I think this is probably about where they should be going. I love the idea of just going and getting that elite level quarterback that does have access to a quarterback 1 overall finish. Okay. DK Metcalf off the board here, pick 56. Bedrow on the clock. Okay. Michael Thomas, 57. Let's see what Fantasy Dog Pound decides to do. Here's what we do. We either go Dobbins or Brandon Cooks. Yeah, he goes J.K. Dobbins. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to take Brandon Cooks. We can still get a running back at pick 62. I mean, here with Sticky Kush, I think he's in a spot where he probably has to just go wide receiver, which is exactly what he does. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to get David Montgomery as our running back 1 here in the 6th round, starting with the 5 wide receiver builds. I mean, this is a team that usually I do not have. It's a very awkward spot to be in. I really like taking advantage of this David Montgomery value that you have at the beginning of the 6th. I mean, we almost even got our guy in J.K. Dobbins at the end of the 5th round there as well. Like, if we would have been looking at a Dobbins, David Montgomery turn, I think that would have been a very, very, very exciting. And if you're wondering why we decided to go Brandon Cooks over Chris Godwin here, despite our rankings having Chris Godwin higher, I mean, if you're going to be looking at this format, we do not have the fantasy football playoffs. If you look at my draft guide, that's going to be for a regular 2022 fantasy football league, where obviously you have the fantasy football playoffs. And during that stretch, you should have an elite level ceiling for a player like Chris Godwin. But specifically in this league, it's going to be much tougher if all of a sudden we are in a spot where we are looking at Chris Godwin missing the first month of the season. I'm not saying this is likely, but I'm saying it's in the range of outcomes for him to ever be able to replicate the just raw amount of points we're going to get from a Brandon Cooks weeks 1 through 17. Okay. So let's move this back down. Dexter says, why is Dobbins ranked better than David Montgomery? J.K. Dobbins is running behind a much, much better offensive line in a much better offense in general. Like, I definitely think you go Dobbins over Montgomery. I made that video calling J.K. Dobbins a league-winning player back a couple weeks ago, and I honestly thought that I had a hot take saying he was going to be a player with a 4th-round ADP by the time we got to the season. It's bumped up a little bit. Like, he's going more in the middle of the 5th now than he was going in the middle of the 6th back then. I still think he can get to a 4th-round ADP. I mean, if we're looking at J.K. Dobbins as a prospect, if we're looking at J.K. Dobbins and his rookie season efficiency, if we're going to be going through and looking at J.K. Dobbins with the situation he's in this upcoming year, with how run-heavy this team wants to be and the injury to Gus Edwards, I really like Dobbins at this price point. Same is coming out, says, is there another Pomeranian tomorrow? Okay. I cannot confirm this. I cannot confirm. Of course, I'm not important enough for Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is a massive company. I'm sadly not important enough to have the insider info on this. But I had a random person DM me on Instagram earlier today saying, yo, Mason, FYI, I just pulled up this DM. A 0% rake $3 Pomeranian contest is dropping tomorrow. Puppy 4 is coming right after that. I cannot say this is true. This is a random DM from someone that I've never spoken to before on Instagram. I clicked their profile. It looks like they have no connection with Underdog Fantasy. I don't know if they heard something down the pipeline. So don't get mad at me when this doesn't happen. Please don't get mad at me when this doesn't happen. But I am really hoping that I go to the gym tomorrow morning and I see that there's a $3 Pomeranian on Underdog tomorrow. Justin says, Underdog's Twitter. Okay, I have not been. If y'all don't know, I do not follow really anybody on Twitter. I do not like Twitter. I have one so I can go out and tweet some funny things out for y'all, but let me look up Underdog on Twitter. And I also have Twitter more like an extension of Google, where if we're on the clock and we need to figure out if a player's injured or something, we'll go through and we'll search on Twitter. Okay, I don't see anything on Underdog's Twitter. Yeah, I don't see anything. I'll give a Christian Kirk off the board here, 80. Amari Cooper going off at 78. Let's move this back around. TJ Hawkinson, 81. Clyde Edwards-Helaire off the board. That does suck for us. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take Russell Wilson here. We don't have a stack for Russell Wilson, but I like the idea of getting a quarterback that does have it in the range of outcomes where he can be a top 3 quarterback in fantasy this upcoming season. Okay, so it looks like... Okay, guys, I checked their Twitter. Maybe they tweeted it and then deleted it. Okay, Hartnell says they posted it like 4 days ago. Okay, that makes sense. I just checked their Twitter for today. And after we take Rust here, we're going to reach on Miles Sanders. I know, obviously, we're reaching. I can see the ADP, yada, yada, yada. I think with Miles Sanders running behind an elite offensive line, I think he still is the favorite to be the running back one in Philadelphia. I think he's a running back that can catch passes. And I think that this is a team that's going to put up a lot more points than people are expecting. Okay. Hardell says, Pomeranian 3 on the 22nd, Pomeranian 4 on the 29th. Okay. Exciting, exciting. Hopefully it happens in the morning. Hopefully they drop it in the morning. And guys, of course, if y'all want to get in these drafts with everybody in the live stream, which was what we were all talking about over there on Underdog Fantasy, go to the link in the live chat. Go to the link in the description of the video. Go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. When you sign up for Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. You are going to get our 2022 fantasy football rankings, our 2022 fantasy football draft guide. With a $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy, you are going to get our 2022 fantasy football draft guide, nearly 300 pages of information. Okay. But I still don't see what y'all are talking about. Y'all can't be trolling me. No, y'all are right. Pomeranian 3, $100,000. August 22nd. Pomeranian 4, $100,000, August 29th. And then Puppy 4, and they tweeted out some eye emojis. So can't confirm when we are getting the Puppy 4. Yeah. So I can't confirm when we're getting the Puppy 4, but someone dropped the little tip on Instagram that, from my point of view, had no connection with Underdog. And maybe right after Pomeranian 3. Yeah. Now, Marquez Valdez-Scantling going off the board at pick 97. Treylon Burks, 96. So, I mean, at this point, we still kind of want to be bringing in running backs. I mean, if we're going to be looking at tight ends, in reality, I'm not dying to bring in any tight ends in this range. Rashad Penny off the board, 99. It would have been really nice if we had Clyde Edwards-Helaire fall one more pick to us. If we would have had CEH there, I would have been very excited. Now, going over looking at what we'll have at running back, Antonio Gibson's just a tough guy to go with. Tyler Boyd off the board, 101. Rondell Moore goes. Okay, honestly, good for us. I mean, if we're going to be looking at our construction, we already have 5 wide receivers. Our 5 wide receivers are very strong. You know what we probably should have done instead of going with Miles Sanders? Could we have talked ourselves into going Dak Prescott and getting that CeeDee Lamb stack? Possibly. Maybe it wouldn't have been the right call. But Derek Carr off the board, 104 here. So let's see what these two teams decide to do but right before us. I think a Devin Singletary honestly would be somewhat intriguing in this format when we don't have to worry about James Cook taking the role down the stretch if Devin Singletary has it at the beginning portion of the season. So Bedrow on the clock. They have Allen, Barkley, Dillon. They go James Cook. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to take Devin Singletary. Singletary would be a running back that I wouldn't have been nearly as excited about in that league with the fantasy football playoffs where we need to be optimizing for weeks 15, 16, 17. Because by the time we get to there, it's not going to be Devin Singletary's job. It is going to be James Cook's. But here in this format, I think Singletary is going to be a fine pick. You should have the role as he's starting running back for one of the most productive offenses in the NFL at the very beginning portion of the season. Now we have Zach Ertz off the board after Zach Ertz is gone. Let's go ahead. Let's take Cordell Patterson here at 110. I mean, with Cordell Patterson, we're just locking ourselves into some running back touches. That's kind of what we need with this build. I mean, if we're going to go through, if we're going to look at what we have at wide receiver, Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, Deontay Johnson, Brandon Cooks. I mean, I think we have a very strong wide receiver core. Whereas at running back, we have David Montgomery, Miles Sanders, Devin Singletary, Cordell Patterson. We have the elite level quarterback. A very interesting team. I don't necessarily love it. We tried something new from pick 11 here in the $3 draft. Just wanting to try to test some different things out. Don't know if I would go back and do this again, though. I don't think I would go back and do this again. But if y'all want to see us possibly get in another draft for this one, Make sure you go down there, drop a like in the live stream. If we hit 900 likes in the live stream, we will go through and we will fire up another draft after this. DJ So says, what are your thoughts on Marvin Jones? Marvin Jones is someone that in a shallow redraft format, not worth the roster spot. In a shallow redraft format, he's going to be very similar to everybody else that you're going to be looking at off the waiver wire. Like, he's not going to have a truly special ceiling. There's almost no reason in going after a Marvin Jones in a format like that. Here in best ball, he's going to be fine when you're just trying to find anybody who can be productive at the wide receiver position extremely late. Jayan says, gonna have to work my ass off tonight. Looking forward to it, Jayan. I think I saw that you uploaded another video right before I went live here. Definitely been killing the game, my man. And you can clearly see it's paying off. Clearly see it's paying off. Okay, so we have Chase Claypool, Julio, a lot of mid-tier receivers. Now, Dawson Knox finally goes in a reasonable range, in my opinion. Dawson Knox off the board here at 119. I mean, I think that this is probably about the range where you want to assume Dawson Knox should be a value. Like, if Dawson Knox was going at this point, I'd be like, oh yeah, Dawson Knox, a very intriguing pick here. Someone who does have a lot of touchdown upside. I like this price point. It's just very difficult when you have to take him at pick 104. You have to take him like 15 picks before this. That's where it's like, it does get tough. Now, McCole Hardman off the board at 122. Gardner Minshew coming out says, who would you pick? Tyler Lockett, Drake London, Devonta Smith. I would go ahead. I'd either take Drake London or Devonta Smith here. I mean, we're chasing receivers with upside in that shallow redraft format. I mean, I don't necessarily think that Lockett is going to have that ceiling that we're looking for, assuming that we do end up getting Geno Smith or Drew Lock at quarterback, which I think that should be the assumption when right now Jimmy Garoppolo is still sitting on the San Francisco 49ers. If the Seahawks were going to make a play for him, I think it would have already happened. Craig TV says, glad I was drafting Alvin Kamara in the third when they weren't sure he was going to play. You have no idea how many drafts we have with Alvin Kamara in the third round. Also, I've gotten Alvin Kamara in the fourth round in a lot of those contests. But in this draft, let's go through and let's just, I guess, take another running back. Let's take Nyheim Hines. I mean, just making sure that we're getting running back touches on this team. I think with Hines here, it should be someone that's more intriguing in best ball that we could see some random spike weeks given his receiving down role. After we take Hines, I guess maybe we can be looking at Albert O on the way back around to pick 134 to get that stack up with Russell Wilson, considering the fact that we don't have a tight end yet. That would make sense, even though I am concerned based on the preseason usage that we had with Albert O. Okay, Alexander Madison off the board, 132. Tua Tagovailoa. I like the idea of taking Kenneth Gainwell here as well. Let's go Albert O. I am concerned about the preseason usage, obviously, but at the same time, we took Russell Wilson. And y'all know we passed on Albert O in the last draft. We took Russell Wilson at the very beginning of the live stream, but that was because we also had Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. So we already had enough correlation where I wasn't stressing at all about going and adding another Denver Bronco into the mix. But here, when we don't have any of those guys, might as well just take Albert O. It's not the end of the world. Okay, so let's scroll this down. And guys, tomorrow I think we have a good shot at passing 80,000 subscribers on the channel. So 90,000 is in the cards. Y'all know we said we would get a 24-hour live stream going if we got 90,000 subs on the channel. It looks like that's a possibility. It looks like that's something that could potentially, and I repeat, potentially happen. Kyle says, do you think the winning Best Ball Mania 3 team has already been drafted? I think they have like 65% of teams already drafted, so I'm no mathematician. But if I had to make a bet, and about 65% of teams have already been drafted, and there are only 35% left to be drafted, I'm no rocket scientist, as I've always said. But if I was a betting man, the winning team's already been drafted. I'd say at least about a 65% chance it has. Okay. Now we have Isaiah Pacheco off the board here, 143. Isaiah Spiller off at 141. William says, what type of videos will you post when the season starts? Oh, I can't wait for the season to start. So when the season officially starts, On Monday, we are going to have our weekly basket weaving videos. I'm going to go through it. It's going to be a 16-week process. Every single week, I'm going to give you an additional step on how to more efficiently weave your baskets in a creative way as well, where you don't necessarily just have a boring basket at the end of the process. It's going to be a basket that really speaks to you. It's going to be something that you are going to be very proud to show your friends. And on the every Tuesday, we're going to go through, we're going to do origami. We're going to be folding little like paper swans, which will be very fun. On Wednesday, I think we're doing push-up contest on Wednesday. I think we're going to live stream. I'm going to be inviting people on through StreamYard, and then we're just going to challenge them to push-up contest on Wednesday. Thursday, we're going to get a little bit wild. It's going to be a fashion show Wednesday every night where I'm going to give you a PO box. You're going to be able to go through and send me in whatever outfit that you want me to wear. We are going to do like a little fashion show every Wednesday. Or that was Thursday. I apologize. Friday, we are going to just freaking party. I mean, oh my gosh, y'all won't even believe what we're doing on Friday. I'm just going to put some strobe lights in here. I'm going to push the desk back a little bit, get the full wide shot of the camera, and I'm just going to dance for y'all. Y'all can suggest songs. I'll put it on. I'll freestyle a dance, show y'all some of the moves we have. Saturday, maybe we do some karaoke. Like we can invite people on through StreamYard again. We can do karaoke. We can play it on the street. It'll be very fun. Sunday, I don't know exactly what we do on Sunday. If y'all have any suggestions on what y'all would like to see, let me know what you want to see on Sunday. But now we are on the clock. I would say at this point, we still need quarterback. We kind of need a little bit of everything. Herbert, obviously, do we have a report on the injury? He's limited, so it sounds like he should be good. Let's go Nico Collins. I mean, throw up our hands in the air. We have Brandon Cooks with Nico Collins. We are going to get some correlation to this Houston Texans offense. I'm more excited about Nico Collins in this format in particular. I think we can get a tight end on the way back around that we feel comfortable about. Clayton says Sunday should be a vlog at Sky Zone. I like the idea, my friends. Yeah, Sunday will be like a vlog type thing. Maybe we like mix it up a little bit every Sunday. Maybe like we go to a zoo one Sunday. Another Sunday we go to like the trampoline park. I like the idea, my friend. Now, let's move this down real quick. And of course, if you have not dropped a like in the live stream yet, make sure you go down there, drop a like in the stream. We are about 110 likes away from firing up the next draft after this one. The next draft would most likely just be another $3 private draft, but honestly, maybe we go a little crazy. Maybe we try to fire up another $250 one. Maybe we do. Maybe we do. Okay, let's move this around. Fantasy Football Dog Pound asking for us to rate a squad. Let's go through. Let's check it out. Derrick Henry at pick 10. Obviously, you're never going to complain when you're getting Derrick Henry at 10. Taking Deebo Samuel in the second, I kind of understand it whenever you're looking at the situation where you don't necessarily know exactly what you're going to have in terms of just wide receivers making it to you at the 3-4 turn. Obviously, you end up getting Mike Williams, and I'm assuming that if you knew you were going to get Mike Williams on the way back in the third, maybe you wouldn't have taken Deebo Samuel there at pick 15, and maybe instead you would have gone with one of those tier 2 running backs. But then Allen Robinson at pick 39, I mean, with Allen Robinson, it's dead. It's the dead zone. Like, you can do whatever the hell you want. Then when we're looking at J.K. Dobbins, love Dobbins at pick 58. Darnell Mooney, pick 63. Fine value. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 82. That would have been my pick. Goddard, 87. I mean, I'm fine with Dallas Goedert as a player. I think that he's an elite level talent. I was drafting a decent amount of him previously. It does feel like a difficult spot to be taking him now. Lockett, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Parker, Kenneth Gainwell, Hunter Henry, and Jamal Williams. I like the team, my friend. I like the team. But let me go through, scroll this down, and looks like the dog just pushed open the door somehow to get in here. So I will show the dog on the stream. We haven't shown her in quite a while. You got to stand up, babe. Come here. I know that probably a lot of y'all haven't seen the dog before. This is the real underdog. You want to tell them drop a like in the video? Say, if y'all want another video, if y'all want another draft, better go down there and drop a like. Tell them, hey, look in the camera. Look in the camera. Tell them. Tell them. Good girl. Okay, so we have Matt Ryan off the board here at the beginning of the 16th rounds. I think that at this point, We probably still want a third tight end. I mean, we waited so long to bring in a tight end here. I know a lot of people would make the argument, oh, okay, well, you want to maximize your upside. You want to be bringing in a receiver who could have a higher spike week potential on a week-to-week basis. In reality, in this type of format, I am not necessarily dying to just go through and add in as many wide receivers as possible because it's a private draft. It's not going to be a tournament-style draft. Now we have Tyrion Davis-Price at 173. Noah Fant off the board. Noah Fant would have been that tight end that we were looking at bringing in. Now, I think at this point, if we're looking at a Hayden Hurst and Evan Ingram as well as an Austin Hooper, they are all about in the same range for us. If we're looking at quarterbacks that we could be bringing in to make sense with this build, I mean, I guess we could be looking at Davis Mills in one of the last rounds. I don't like Davis Mills, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, but I mean, we did draft Brandon Cooks. We did draft Nico Collins with this team, so it would make sense. If this team's going to be any good at all, Davis Mills probably has to be good. If we're looking at running backs in this range, really, there are no guys that excite me. Hayden Hurst off the board. So let's go ahead. Let's probably take, I guess we have to make two selections here. Let's make one of our picks as Mac Jones. I mean, with Mac Jones. I'm not jumping up and down to do it, but it is what it is. They're all about the same for me. Justin says you should like Davis Mills. I'm sorry, my friend. I don't like Davis Mills. I'm not a Davis Mills fan. I mean, Vegas right now as well has the Houston Texans as the projected worst, and I repeat, worst team in the NFL. They play in a division with the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. Okay. You gotta lay down. You gotta lay down. I know. You're breathing in the camera, girl. Okay, so Evan Ingram off. Let's go ahead. Do we just take Hooper? It is what it is. Let's just go ahead. Let's take Austin Hooper here. I think that we are going to end up taking one more quarterback, whether that's Davis Mills or Carson Wentz in the last round. And then we probably want to grab another running back here as well. But, I mean, there are just a lot of running backs that are about the same for me at this point. Cody says, can you use Underdog if you're in another country? You can use Underdog if you're in Canada, everywhere outside of Ontario. I think, like, Ontario has their own little DFS thing that they're doing. And you cannot do it in – I don't think you can do it in Mexico. I know you can definitely not do it in Europe. I don't think you can do it in Australia. I could be mistaken, but I don't think so. I think it's a mainly U.S. thing. Obviously, there are some states, just like any other DFS thing, that you have to get special permitting to operate in. I don't think that Underdog's in Nevada or Washington, Connecticut, Louisiana, Hawaii, and maybe there's like one more. Like, even if your state doesn't have sports betting, there's a good chance it has Underdog. Like, I've lived in Texas and Florida, and we've had Underdog Fantasy in both, even though we don't have like online sports books in either. Okay. And also, if you want to go through, if you want to join our next draft, make sure you go down there, drop a like on the live stream, and go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. You can find the link in the live chat. You can find the link in the description of the video. When you go and sign up for Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, because I've worked my butt off to get this deal for y'all, literally with a $10 deposit, you get our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide. With a $10 deposit, you get our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide. 300 pages. Go take advantage of that. Promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. On top of that, you'll get our rankings. They'll match your deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. And we do these drafts every single night so you can draft with us. And if you want to get in that next draft after this, I think we are 65 likes away on the live stream from firing up another draft after this one. I think we're 65 likes. Okay. So now we have Will Fuller, Darrell Williams here. How much Darrell Williams do I have? Because I didn't draft Darrell Williams a lot when he first signed, but I did start to warm up to the idea later on. But it does look like if Darrell Williams is going to be the running back 3 here in Arizona, that maybe it was never a good idea to draft him. I have no idea how much Darrell Williams I actually have. I'm assuming it's like probably on average like 5%. Oh, I have a lot more. I have 9%. I have a lot more Darrell Williams than I assumed. Hopefully Darrell Williams is the running back 2 in Arizona. I've not drafted any Eno Benjamin. Okay, so let's move this around. This is the first draft we decided to go through and take Eno. Yeah, the running back we usually take in this range is going to be Jerick McKinnon. He's already off the board. Davis Mills got drafted as well. Zach Wilson off. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take Mariota. We're just going to lock in our third quarterback. I mean, all these running backs are about the same for me. I think Sticky Kush, very unlikely to take a fourth quarterback when they have Brady, Tua, and Jameis Winston already. But let's not even roll the dice. Let's just go ahead. Let's grab them. And then I know we're not drafting many wide receivers with this build, but keep in mind it's going to be a private draft. It's not going to be one of those tournament drafts where we're trying to go through and we're trying to just maximize the amount of upside that we have for that final 3-week stretch. So let's take Gus Edwards here. I think we're just trying to raise our median projection. And I know we always make fun of people for trying to do that, but in this league format in particular, I think it does make a lot of sense. Okay, so now let's go through and see this. My Sub-Zero says, Deontay fell so far in my draft this year. The guide helped me out big time for me. Easy money. Thank you so much, my friend. Super happy to hear that. And yeah, I mean, people have been sending me their teams that they've used with the guide, and I'm sorry, that they use the guide to draft. I guess it's just because I'm used to like literally only drafting with diehard people that I've forgotten like that while it seems like fantasy football has gotten so much harder for me, maybe it's just the people we've been drafting with have gotten so much better where if you're drafting in just like that casual league with your friends, fantasy football is still a very, very easy game to beat. But thank you, of course, my friend, for the kind words. I appreciate it, and I'm super happy to hear that you like your team. And we are 50 likes away from firing up another draft after this one. If you have not done so already, please go down there and drop a like on the stream. Y'all know I appreciate you. And now we have Hassan Haskins going 211. Eno Benjamin off the board at 209 after we take Gus Edwards here. John says, are you planning on making a fantasy beginner's guide video? I've been told to do that before. The issue is I don't know how much it would actually help. Like, how many would y'all... I'm assuming, like, not too many people in here would want to see a fantasy football beginner's guide video. Let me know in the live chat if that is something you'd be interested in. Thomas says, 30 more likes. Let's hit the buzzer beater. At 30 more likes if y'all want to see another draft after this one. It looks like Brose's taking this down to the very last second for y'all so y'all can get those likes in. Now, what does he decide to do? He goes Isaiah Likely at 230. Is there some hype going on with Isaiah Likely? I mean, this is someone that we obviously covered in depth in our Dynasty rookie draft guide. I mean, on our Dynasty channel in general. But from the expectations this season, like to be drafting Isaiah Likely before someone like, I mean, even Trey McBride, it does seem a little thin. Okay. But it looks like we're 10 likes away on the live stream. So I will sit here and I will wait 5 seconds to see if it ends up happening. Because I know usually what happens is if we don't get it, then I'll go through and shut down the live stream and then we'll get it 30 seconds later and everybody will lose their freaking minds. But... let's go through. Let's check out this draft. Let's enter in the... okay. Here's what I'm going to do. We just entered in the $250 draft on Underdog. There's 6 spots open. Let me sit here and wait for about 30 seconds to see if people in this live draft room with us want to draft in a $250 league. The reason I'm willing to do 2 of them tonight is because I don't think that we're going to have the opportunity to draft in too many of these going forward. I think that this contest should fill in a couple weeks, and I'm not getting into those super high stakes contests like the $2,500 drafts. Okay, Williams coming out says, what does best ball mean? If you're looking at best ball, this is a format where you do not submit your starting lineup on a week-to-week basis. The automatic best starting lineup will be submitted for you at the very end of the week, and you also do not have waiver wires. So that's why we go 18 rounds deep. That's why you have someone like Randall Cobb being drafted in the 18th round every single draft. Not every single draft, but just for example, I mean, you have Isaiah Likely being drafted here. So it is going to matter to really focus in on your roster construction, as well as those guys at the very end of your team, or maybe you wouldn't necessarily like them as much in just a casual fantasy football league. Okay. Derek says, give it a minute or two. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to do this $250 draft, but as we wait, I will get a private $3 draft going for everybody else. So there's 3 spots left. This could take a couple minutes to fill. So we are going to get a $3 draft. We'll follow the $3 draft until that other one fills. Then we'll flip over to the $250 draft, and I'll finish the $3 one off on my phone. So we're going to create this $3 draft for everybody in this live stream right now. So this is going to be just sent out in the live chat. It says a $3 draft here if you're wanting to join. Okay, we just sent that out. There'll be a private link out there in the live chat. And that fills immediately, of course. Let me get my phone over here. That way I just know when we are good to go. And that other one. Yeah, the other one still has 3 spots open. And those last 3 spots can take a very long time to fill. I mean, the $250 draft rooms obviously fill way slower than the other ones. Okay, so here we're drafting with JN at pick 8. Feel like we haven't drafted with JN in a very long time. Outside of that, we have B Rose out here again. I believe G6K has been out here a lot. Obviously, Antler Ice, whatever it's called, has been out here. Y'all know I'm an idiot. I can't read these names. But thank y'all so much for coming out, hanging out with us in this live stream. Thank you for getting the draft with us as well. And I am sorry, the other one has 1 spot open. So we may be pivoting over to the $250 draft real quick. Way quicker than I assumed. Mr. TD says, spot 12. Dang, okay. I'm sorry you had to end up in spot 12, my friend. But pick 7 isn't necessarily the best. I do think you have such an advantage if you get a top 5 pick this year. Like, I'm so happy when I get a top 5 pick. I'm fine taking pick 7 here in the $3 draft. Just when we're in the $250 draft, please make sure, please make sure you're getting me a top 5 pick. You hear that? Can you hear that underdog AI on the mic? Speaking directly into the code right now. I want a top 5 pick. Preferably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? Those are the options I'm giving you. Underdog AI code. I can clearly hear me through this microphone. Okay. So now we have Jamar Chase off the board. If we would have had Jamar Chase falling to us, that would have been very exciting. Let's go ahead. Let's take Stephon Diggs over Derrick Henry here. I mean, the reason we're taking Stephon Diggs, going right back to this, it's the format. It's 100% just the format that we're playing in. I mean, in this format, we are going to be looking at, in my opinion, the advantage to grab running backs in round 6, 7, 8, 9. I love the running backs in those rounds. You have to start 3 wide receivers, so these wide receivers are inherently going to slide up draft boards. But we have Devontae Adams at 9. Dalvin Cook goes at 10. Sean says, do you get bored doing so many drafts? Guys, I'm not joking. I legitimately love doing these drafts. Like, of course, like the $3 private drafts, once we're in like the 4th or 5th one of the night, like, yeah, it does drag along a little bit if people are taking the entire 30 seconds on the clock. If they're not taking the entire 30 seconds on the clock, it's going to be fun no matter what. But I wouldn't be able to do this every single night if it wasn't fun. Like, okay, so Joe Mixon goes at 12, Najee Harris 11, Dalvin Cook at 10. I mean, if y'all don't know about the channel, obviously this is my full-time job now. But back when I was in college, like in 2019, 2020, I went through and I was taking so many classes. I graduated 2 degrees in 4 years. Like, I was taking crap ton of classes. I love fantasy football so much. I made a video every single day for years, like hundreds of videos. And I would get like 20 views on them just because I love it so much. This is what I truly enjoy. Okay, so we have DeAndre Swift, Travis Kelce off the board, 14, 15. I think at this point, I mean, crap. Ladies and gentlemen, I got bad news. Oh, my God. Oh. There was a glitch in the code. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I clearly specified I clearly set into this microphone where there should have been, I mean, this should be hooked up to Underdog Fantasy. They should clearly be able to hear me through the code. They should have the AI system on point to know that I requested 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Some people say, maybe they are random. Maybe that's why we end up getting hit pick 12. God dang. Freaking pick 12 here. Greg says AWS screws us again. That's pretty funny. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's see if we can make it work. Let's see if we can make it work. We have Jonathan Taylor CMC off the board here, 1 and 2. Let's. Oh, this is gonna be tough. This is gonna be tough, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what we're gonna do, but we'll figure it out. At least we don't have to draft right next to Derek. CSU Ram out here yet again, of course. It seems like every $250 draft we join CSU Rams out here. James says a double hero running back. Definitely the most common start from the 1-2 turn if you're going to be looking at the draft board. And if you did double hero running back last year, I mean, you kind of lucked yourself into, I don't want to say lucked yourself into. You got Jonathan Taylor and Austin Eckler, so it worked. Don't necessarily think because Jonathan Taylor and Austin Eckler were going at the 1-2 turn last year, that means that 2 league-winning running backs are coming from this point again. But dear God. Jefferson goes at 4. And what is up with these $250 drafts? Everybody taking down to the very last second. It's going to be so funny if Derek ends up getting Cooper Kupp falling to him at pick 8 again. I really want to see what CSU Rams doing here at 7. I'm assuming that he goes Diggs. My assumption would be he goes Stephon Diggs. Okay, Eckler goes at pick 6. Diggs, and let's see if Derek decides to go Adams or Henry. I'm assuming that's what he does. He goes Devontae Adams at 8. Okay. I know Derek usually likes to push those wide receivers up the board. So Derrick Henry falling down to pick 9 here. I mean, maybe we decide to go through and push up a CeeDee Lamb to guarantee ourselves one of these wide receivers. But in reality, it's just very tough if we're going to be looking at the player board right now. Let's see, Imcon Grove, maybe they decide to push up a CeeDee Lamb on their own. They go Kelsey at 10. And Fischel. Let's see if they want the wide receiver. Let's see if they want Lamb. They go Mixon. So we're going to go Dalvin Cook and Najee Harris. We are going to get that double hero RB. I think when we have Dalvin Cook fall to us at pick 12, when he has an ADP of 8.8, it's going to provide us a very unique start to go with these 2 running backs. Even though I do not like pick 12, I am on record saying I do not like pick 12. You have to be excited about this. I do not think that many teams at all are going to be able to go with the combination of Dalvin Cook and Najee Harris. I think it's a combo that does have a lot of upside. So even though I was crying about getting pick 12 at the beginning of this live stream, this is exciting. This is an exciting start through the first 2 rounds. But, oh, dear God, dear God. And then you have CeeDee Lamb going 16. I'm sure that Derek was hoping that he was going to end up getting CeeDee Lamb falling to him at 17 so he could pair that up with a Devontae Adams. Ends up not being the case, but it is what it is. He has his 2 wide receivers start that I'm assuming he was wanting to get regardless. And of course, if you were wanting to join our next draft, this is our 4th or 5th draft of the live stream. We do this every single night. Go to the link in the description. Go to the link in the live chat. Go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. When you sign up for Underdog Fantasy, use promo code FLOCK. They will match your first deposit dollar for dollar to $100. And with a $10 deposit, as I've said, I worked my butt off to get this for y'all. When you use promo code FLOCK and make that $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy, you get our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide and our 2022 Fantasy Football Rankings as well. Go make sure you take advantage of that ASAP. But we have Javonte Williams, Alvin Kamara here going in the middle of the second. So there aren't too many surprising selections so far. Tyreek Hill goes 22. Obviously, what we are hoping for is we are hoping that we get a wide receiver that we like falling to us. Like if we get Jalen Waddle at the 3-4 turn, I'm going to be very excited about that. But it's never going to be something that's just guaranteed. Okay, so A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill off the board here, the end of the second round. And this is going to be before Evans, Leonard Fournette. We ended up seeing in that other $250 draft, you had Mike Evans falling to the middle of the third round for Derek. You have T. Higgins here going before Mike Evans as well. Mike Williams goes before Mike Evans. Mike Evans really falling. I mean, oh, dear God. Oh, dear God. Mike Evans, I mean, I remember my $1,000 draft that I had in this season. You had Mike Evans go at the 201. I was by someone with the biggest fantasy football channel on YouTube as well. But biggest fantasy football content in the world. Mike Evans now falling to the third round consistently. Kyle Pitts goes at pick 26. I mean, I would have loved Kyle Pitts, but in reality, we're just never getting Kyle Pitts at pick 36, especially if we're in a draft with Derek, who would have auto-picked him at 32. Jalen Waddle, 27. Jalen Waddle before Mike Evans. Y'all know I'm a Waddle fan, but this is just ridiculous. Mike Evans finally off the board here, pick 28. Jefferson, Andrews, Mike Evans through the first three rounds. Leonard Fournette falls at 29. I've seen these Tampa Bay Buccaneers players falling across the board. Kuhn coming out to the same Mason CMC or Jonathan Taylor at the 101. I think that we go ahead and we take Jonathan Taylor. Now, we have Josh Allen, pick 31 here. Nick Chubb goes to Derek at 32. I mean, if we're going to be looking at that, you probably have to go ahead. You probably have to get very excited about that price point in general. Keenan Allen, 33. We're hoping for DJ Moore, but it's going to be very tough. Very tough, ladies and gentlemen. Greg says Brady on Masked Singer destroyed Mike Evans. I heard that there was that rumor that Brady was going on Masked Singer or something. I've never seen the show. I've seen like a commercial for it, so I'm assuming that it's like a celebrity behind the mask that goes and sings. Would you know if... Did like a... I don't know. I don't even want to say. I don't know enough with it. Do we just try to go with that unique combo again? Do we go like Sutton and Judy here again and then try to go? No, I think the probability that we would end up getting Russ on the way back around is very slim. Let's go Sutton 36, James Conner 37. I do have Cortland Sutton ranked behind Jerry Judy in our Dynasty Fantasy Football Draft Guide. We have Cortland Sutton wide receiver 19, Jerry Judy wide receiver 18. But if we're looking at a diversification standpoint, I think that Cortland Sutton here, remember, before the Tim Patrick injury, Cortland Sutton had an ADP of 35-34. And I was saying that that was the worst price in all of fantasy football, that you could never pay that in a million years, that it was the most laughable thing ever. But then Tim Patrick went down for the season. I still don't like the price of Sutton, but if we were ever going to buy into him now, at least we can see it playing out. Last draft, we went Sutton and Jalen Waddle at the 3-4 turn. The issue is all these players, after DJ Moore goes off the board, it's a flat tier of about 20 guys. It's a flat tier of about 20 guys. So now we have Breece Hall going pick 40. Gabriel Davis 41. And also, I think if you're looking at Sutton with an ADP of 33, we are just getting a very unique combo of players here. There aren't going to be too many teams in this tournament that are able to have this start of four. I would say maybe we're going to be one of the only teams in the tournament that has Dalvin, Najee, Sutton, and James Conner. Probably the only one. So we have A-Rob going pick 44 here. Allen Robinson falling a considerable amount past his ADP, but in reality, all these wide receivers are in the same tier. Okay, so we are on the clock in that other league. Looks like we have a very balanced team so far. Been halfway picking that other league. I mean, we have Allen at quarterback, Kittle at tight end, Zeke and Elijah Mitchell at running back, and then we have Stephon Diggs and Deebo Samuel at wide receiver. So Herbert goes off the board here, pick 46, to a team that does not have Williams, Keenan Allen, or an Austin Eckler. That's going to be very interesting. I wonder how far we get Darren Waller and George Kittle falling in this draft. I have a feeling that we have these tight ends fall. I mean, it's just a feeling based on the fact that Kyle Pitts went at 26. So I'd imagine that that team there is unlikely to take one of these tight ends here in the turn. And then the same thing from what we saw with the team taking Mark Andrews at pick 21. So you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Godwin going 48, 49. DJ Moore over Terry McLaurin. We are going to go ahead. I am going to draft DJ Moore over Terry McLaurin. I think that with Terry McLaurin, you're going to see more target competition this upcoming season if we are going to be looking at Jahan Dotson. Now, if Judy all the way at pick 50, we almost considered taking Judy there on the turn over James Conner just to get that double stack in there with the Denver Broncos. Why I was more excited about doing it when we were picking at I think we were picking at 10 earlier on, was just because I thought that the probability that we had a Russell Wilson falling to us pick 82 was honestly significantly higher than pick 84. Like, I think expecting Wilson to fall to pick 84 is a pretty far reach. Okay. Thomas says, did I just come in and see Cortland Sutton and Mason see Thomas? Is 2 drafts this live stream. I've drafted Sutton at the end of the third here. Not something that I love doing, but if we are going to be coming out here drafting 600 teams, probably have to do it in a couple spots. And at the same time, I think it's a much more reasonable price point whenever we are looking at no Tim Patrick in this offense. But Darren Waller, George Kittle off the board here in the middle of the 5th round. Love those values with tight ends. Like if we would have had one of those guys fall into us, I would have been crying tears of joy. Derek takes our guy, Patrick Mahomes here as well. That definitely sucks. It is what it is, though. This team on the clock has 3 running backs, 1 tight end. They take their first wide receiver with DK Metcalf here. It's going to be very difficult if we want to go through, if we want to draft a wide receiver. I'm sorry, if we wanted to draft a running back. I mean, right now at running back, we already have Dalvin, Najee, and James Conner. If we're looking at Darnell Mooney compared to some of these other players on the board, honestly, I know not too many people are going to like this. I'm just going to go through. I'm going to double tap the elite level quarterbacks here in Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts. I think that we will have a top 3 quarterback finish every single week with this duo. And at the same time, I think the opportunity cost for the wide receivers that we're passing on, not necessarily there. I think you do have that tier drop off based on the players that, I mean, compared to the players that we were looking at in the 4th round. So let's go Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts. I'm going to be fine with it. We have some correlation with Kyler and James Conner for expecting an expanded receiving down role for James Conner with the departure of Chase Edmonds. And obviously with Jalen Hurts, you're betting on the rushing upside. You're not necessarily betting that this is going to be a quarterback that goes out there and leads the NFL in passing. I know a lot of people aren't going to like that, but in reality, if we're looking at guys like Brandon Ayuk, Darnell Mooney, I think they're going to be comparable to the wide receivers we could see later on. Okay. So let's see what Derek decides to do here. He has 1 running. Derek, how is he getting these values? In that last draft, he had, I mean, freaking Mike Evans in the 3rd round. He had Cooper Kupp, pick 6. And then Deebo Samuel there in the 2nd. Very exciting. And we did this about 30 minutes ago, but she's still here. She never comes on the live stream. So while I can still use her to convince you to drop a like in the live stream and subscribe to the channel, I will. Get up here. Tell them to like the stream. Tell them to like the stream. Tell them. You got to look at the camera, girl. Drop a like in the stream. Like the stream. Like the stream, everyone. I know. I'll let you down. Y'all heard her. Okay, go down there and drop that like. Okay, so after we take Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts, we are obviously wanting quarterbacks off the board. I mean, if we end up in a situation where we found ourselves in the last $250 draft, where we had the combo of Russell Wilson and Joe Burrow falling to us at the 7-8 turn, probably not going to be a great spot to be in. Like, I will just take my L. I'll say, oh my gosh. Very, very interesting to see Chase Edmonds pick 70 there. Is that an experienced bad drafter? No, it's not. So far that team at wide receiver has Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Brandon Cooks. They have the elite level quarterback in Justin Herbert. They have Chase Edmonds at running back. We also see 6th round Tony Pollard. Who are they taking these guys before? I guess there aren't necessarily that great of values on the board. I mean, Burrow goes 72. Definitely helping us out. Thank God. Get Burrow off the board. Get Russell Wilson off the board. Get Tom Brady off the board. Don't make me look like a fool. Okay. Winter Leads coming out, says, hey, Mason, just finished my redraft. Your draft guide helped so much. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate the feedback, and I'm very excited about what we were able to do with that draft guide. And based on some of the lessons that I learned, and I think it's even going to be better next year. Like, I have some things in the works for y'all next year that I can get so damn excited about. That's all I've been able to think about lately. Like, I wasn't able to sleep last night thinking about the long-term plans we have for y'all. Okay, so Russell Wilson, Tom Brady off the board. Perfect. Perfect. I think if we're going to be looking at the wide receivers that we have available to us and the running backs that we have available to us there now at pick 84, at pick 85, I think we made the right call. I think we made the right call going Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts. I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with it. It is what it is. It's what we decided to do. But let me try to figure out what we are going to be looking at later on. Okay, so DeAndre Hopkins off the board. Hopkins would have been a very exciting player. Obviously, if we would have had DeAndre Hopkins fall into us a big 84 on a Kyler Murray build, I would have lost my mind. CEH is someone that I'm still excited about drafting. Why does Derek have to be in these drafts with us? Why does he have to be in this draft? Devonta Smith off the board. Wide receiver that I really like as well. Not going to lie to you, like, there is an outside chance we end up taking a running back here and we only draft 4 in this league. Dak Prescott, 82. Perfect for us. We made that right call going Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts. We made the right call. Sky Moore off the board. So I think we just make the easy selections of Kadarius Toney as well as Clyde Edwards-Helaire here. Like, in reality, let's look at the wide receivers, running backs on the way back around. CEH and Tyler Boyd, or Christian Kirk and Kenneth Walker. Give me Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We're going to go with the hyper-fragile build. I am most likely not drafting another running back now. We're most likely done at running back as well as quarterback. Obviously, we're done at quarterback no matter what with combination of Kyler Murray as well as Jalen Hurts. But when we're looking at running back with Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, James Conner, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think we don't have to draft another one of these guys. And we can save those roster spots later on for extra wide receivers as well as extra tight ends. Because obviously we're going to need to go through and we're going to need to draft 3 tight ends. Okay, so let's move this down. Goddard goes 86. So I have noticed Goddard going earlier and earlier in these drafts. I understand why. I mean, we've been talking about Goddard having the elite level ceiling from a talent perspective. But from a situation perspective, it is pretty tough. Now we have David coming out, says a flock hat at Cardinals-Ravens game tonight. Check Instagram. Let's go through. Let's check this out. So Christian Kirk off the board here, pick 88. Okay, David, I'm not seeing this, my man. Okay, so Rashad Penny, Kareem Hunt, Ramondre Stevenson. Obviously, when we're going with a hyper-fragile build here, we're not looking to go through and draft any more of these running backs. So what we are wanting at this point is we are wanting to see these running backs fly off the board, presenting wide receiver value down to us at pick 108 and 109. Obviously, it's not guaranteed. We are rolling the dice when we decide to do this. But if we go back and we look at what we saw from Best Ball Mania 2 years ago in the winter in a smaller contest similar to this big dog draft that we're currently in, I think that it is going to be a viable strategy to go with, especially if we are only going to have to draft 2 quarterbacks. We can get up to 9 wide receivers. And we do have that 1 wide receiver at the very top with Courtland Sutton. Okay. Dameon Pierce off the board. Great for us. Now we really want to see Sanders and Antonio Gibson gone. Dawson Knox. I did notice that we had one of these teams earlier on stacking, going with the pseudo bully tight end strategy. Like, they're not necessarily going out there taking Kelsey and Pitts, taking a Darren Waller and a George Kittle. But this team did take Mark Andrews and Dalton Schultz. I think that maybe we could see this skewing the tight end landscape a little bit later on in this draft. And it's just going to be something that we need to be on the lookout for in case this team maybe does decide to be a crazy drafter and decide to land a third tight end in here. But it is what it is. Let's move this down. James Cook, 97. Damian Harris off the board, 99. Great for us. Great for us. Singletary off. So if we're looking, I think at this point, we're just praying that we get Robert Woods on the way back around. Zach Ertz is going to be viable here just because we took Kyler Murray. Like, from an ADP perspective, compared to some of the other tight ends that we're going to be getting later on, I'm not dying to take Zach Ertz. But at the same time, when we have Kyler, when we have no tight end, this probably something that we could at least look towards doing. We just can't take another running back here. It doesn't matter what you think of Antonio Gibson, what you think of Kenneth Walker, what you think of Cordell Patterson. They're essentially off our board. Rondell Moore, 106. M. Fisher has Lance Goddard, QB tight end. They go Julio. Okay, so I think we can lock in, honestly, Garrett Wilson and Zach Ertz. Here with Zach Ertz, like I said, don't necessarily love the value of the player, but from a construction standpoint, we can't take running back. So we're going to have to go through. We're going to have to take a different position. And if we're going to be looking at Claypool, not necessarily too excited to go through and draft a Chase Claypool in this range with the reports that we're getting out of Pittsburgh regarding George Pickens. So let's go ahead. Let's just make the pick. And then with Garrett Wilson, obviously one of the worst situations you could ever draw up for the New York Jets, where he could potentially be the second receiver in one of the worst passing offenses in the entire NFL. But at the same time, hell, at the end of the day, I think that he is significantly more talented than any other player in this range. Okay. So Aaron Rodgers goes pick 112. Derek Carr, 114. Very interesting to see. I understand from a thought process perspective, whenever you're looking at this Las Vegas Raiders offense, if you're going to be assuming that they do pick up the pace of play this upcoming season, just get more plays off per game to go through and to take Derek Carr in this range, it's difficult for me. When you know Derek Carr is going to have, 50 rushing yards at the end of the season? Like, I think I'm probably going to be avoiding the majority of quarterbacks in this range, almost regardless of the name. Okay. A lot of people pumping up Chris Olave in the chat right now. I'm assuming it's from the receiving touchdown yesterday. Let me know if I'm wrong. Let me know if there's something I'm missing with Chris Olave. Alberto says, imagine how crazy draft rooms would be if it didn't show your ADP. There is a very cool, I forgot what the name of the draft is. There's a high stakes draft in Vegas that you cannot have like a player list. You cannot have a list of ADP. You literally just go in with no phone, with nothing in person, and it's a high stakes draft, and you draft off your memory. And like there's the draft board in front of everybody in the room. I can't exactly remember what it's called, but I feel like that would be something that would be very fun to be a part of. Okay. Derek says Gibson at this price still has a ton of upside, an injury away from being a full-time running back. Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you about that, my man. I mean, maybe you view him in a similar light as like a Melvin Gordon at this point, which obviously that's the same price point. I just couldn't take him. I just couldn't take him with this build. Okay. So we're on the clock in the other league. Let's go through. Let's make our pick. Do we just go take Gainwell? Nah, let's take Chark in there. Okay, so Jalen Tolbert off the board. Albert O as well. Let's swing this back around. So it looks like running backs are currently the best players available, but at the same time, I don't know if we're going to be able to take advantage of that value. Okay, so Darrell Henderson off the board, 127. Good for us. I like the value of Henderson here. We just can't take him. Rashad White, 128. Great for us as well. And if we're looking at some of these teams right before us, I'd imagine that we probably end up getting... Actually, I guess if they're looking at our team, they know that we're probably not going running back. I think at some point, maybe we can grab another guy. Rick says, worth it to do Best Ball Mania at this point with the ADP changes. You also have to think with Best Ball Mania, like, yes, like you have guys like George Pickens going up significantly compared to the drafts that were done at the very beginning of the season. But at the same time, you have guys like Jameson Williams at significant discounts. So I'd say if you're getting in a Best Ball Mania draft, just understand the context of those draft boards that were being created 2 months ago. And maybe in those rooms, you look to go and try to soak up all the Treylon Burks, the Jameson Williams, the Michael Gallup. I mean, those players that have just plummeted down draft boards. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, you decide to avoid the players that have moved up a ton, like a Michael Thomas. So definitely, I'd say probably worth getting in. I specifically made it a point to max out Best Ball Mania about, I don't want to say a month ago, a couple weeks ago. But at the same time, you just have to understand where players are being drafted back then. Okay, so we go with Devontae Parker and Michael Gallup here. Honestly, I love Devontae Parker and Michael Gallup. If we're going to be looking at them as our wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 in a best ball format, I do think that this is a build with a lot of upside. I think that this is a team that we can be very excited about, especially considering if we're just going to continue to hammer in wide receiver depth later on. We have some more running backs going off the board here in the 12th round. Irv Smith Jr. off the board at 138. Derek says you have guys like Isaiah Pacheco who weren't drafted in 50% of your drafts. That's a great point as well. And then obviously those guys that were being drafted at the end of drafts in Best Ball Mania a couple months ago, like Justin Ross was going in almost every single draft. You have players that were being drafted, like Laviska Shenault's another example. He was someone going in almost every single draft. Where there were a lot of wasted picks back then. Okay, sorry. I'm in that other draft trying to figure out what we want to do. Okay, so we have some more of these wide receivers going off the board here at the end of the 12th, the beginning of the 13th. I still have some names in the back of my mind that I'm specifically going to be targeting at pick 156 and 157. And at this point, we still can go through. We can bring in some more tight ends. I think if we wait until the very end of this draft, we could potentially draft the 5th running back, even though 99% of pretty much anybody who's smart would tell you not to do that. Now we have KJ Hamler off the board, 146. Hamler would have been someone we were looking at. Y'all know I like KJ Hamler. Okay. Sold by Shook says, I think Brian Robinson will be our running back 1 past week 5. The issue with projecting Brian Robinson to be a running back 1, for example, is going to be that with Brian Robinson, he is a player that is going to be in that touch squeeze with J.D. McKissic. So even if you expect that Antonio Gibson is completely phased out, which is probably not going to be the case, even if Brian Robinson is the running back 1 in Washington, even if Antonio Gibson's not getting any work at all, you still should have J.D. McKissic as a receiving down running back. So it's hard for me to go out there and get on board with top 12 upside at the position for someone like a Brian Robinson. Christian Watson gone. Christian Watson is someone that y'all know I'm very excited about. I'm drafting a lot where I can. Jameson Williams is also someone that I would have drafted here if we had the opportunity to. Deshaun Watson off the board here, 155. Very interesting when they know we can't take another quarterback. Do we just... We're going to take Gesicki here, and then we're going to grab one more receiver. Go to the live chat right now. How I would be looking at this is I probably would move Jarvis to the bottom. But go to the live chat and let me know, what wide receiver do you want? What wide receiver do you want at this pick? Okay, a lot of people are saying Wandale. I like the idea of Wandale as well. I mean, that's who we put at the top of the queue. Yeah, let's go Wandale Robinson. We also have Kadarius Toney, so we are getting some correlation in here with this New York Giants offense. So I think it does make a lot of sense. Okay, so let's go through. Let's move this down. Now, the issue is, like, can we get enough wide receiver production, specifically at the very beginning of the season? Because if you look at it, we won't have Gallup. Obviously, he's probably not going to come back to week 3, week 4, week 5. Also, Garrett Wilson, a rookie. Wandale Robinson, a rookie. So we are going to have some upside down the stretch. But can we have enough production at the beginning of the year? Now, Sold by Shook coming out. Thank you, my friend. Says, thoughts on Javonte this year? Running back 1 potential. 100% he has running back 1 potential. He's being drafted as a running back 1, so he better have that in his range of outcomes. He's still going to be in a committee with Melvin Gordon. The question is, what does that committee breakdown look like? I do think it is, say, 60-40 in favor of Javonte. Is it 65-35? Is it 70-30? If it's 70-30 in favor of Javonte Williams, I think Javonte Williams could be a top 5 RB. So if you're getting Javonte at the 2-3 turn in your casual fantasy football league, I think it's going to be a fine price point. Once you get him up to being like a mid-second round pick, that's where it's going to get really tough. Okay. So now we have Tyrion Davis-Price off the board, pick 166. Good for us. Like, I probably want to throw in another tight end if we can in the 18th round here. Herman says, Jesus Mason, I was watching the stream, drove 2 hours home. I get here and you're still live. Respect the grind, my man. Thank you. Thank you, my friend. And I'm just sitting here living live, drafting fantasy football teams. Like, it's not like we're out here doing manual labor or anything. I'm sitting down in the comfy chair, having some fun, drafting some teams. Now we have Marvin Jones off the board at 168. We have some teams here at the very end of the draft that have gone very, very heavy on the wide receiver allocation spots, where we have this team that took CMC with pick 2. And then since then at quarterback, they have Russell Wilson. At running back, they also have Tony Pollard, Dameon Pierce. They have Kyle Pitts at tight end, but they are just hammering in as many wide receivers as they possibly can. A wide receiver, they have A.J. Brown, Hollywood Brown, Jerry Jeudy, Tyler Lockett, Chase Claypool, McCole Hardman, Isaiah McKenzie, KJ Hamler, and Alec Pierce. Very, very interesting. Okay. So let's move this down. Noah Fant off the board, 171. Now, obviously, it would make sense for us to go and possibly take Daniel Jones on a team where we have Kadarius Toney and Wandale Robinson, especially if we like Daniel Jones' a rushing upside in particular. But in reality, with this build, we can't. We have Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts. Like, there's no way in hell we can take another quarterback. Okay. Okay, so Daniel Jones off the board. Great for us. This team David only has 3 running backs. His 3 running backs are Eckler, Kamara, and Kareem Hunt. He goes Jared Goff here as a 3rd QB. Probably pretty good for us, if we're going to be honest. Beyond that, Derek on the clock. He goes Evan Ingram. Very interesting to see him go Evan Ingram. I guess he had Lawrence, so it does make sense why he decides to go with him over Higbee. I would have been so excited to get Tyler Higbee as a tight end 3 here. Side of that. Don't exactly know what we're going to be looking at. And real quick, if y'all want to get another draft going, we are getting another draft going if we hit 1,100 likes in the live stream. Tannehill at 178. What do we want? Watkins off the board. I think we just need to slam in 2 wide receivers here. It's very boring. I don't know who to take. They're all in the same tier. We're going to take the 2 guys highest according to ADP. Very boring. I understand it. Maybe a lot of people would make the argument that we should go AJ Green. In reality, there's a decent shot we get AJ Green making it back to us in the 17th. I've seen a lot of 17th, a lot of 18th round AJ Green in my day. So let's take these 2 wide receivers here. Let's try to capture some spike weeks. Not too exciting at the end of the day, but it is what it is. And I specifically have an 18th round 18th round tight end that I'm going to be looking for. Okay. Yeah, so we are 50 likes away from firing up another draft after this one. If y'all want to see one, please make sure you go down there and drop a like in the live stream. Yeah, AJ Green goes directly after us. Okay, so why I was saying that I think a lot of people would have wanted us to go AJ Green is obviously we had Kyler Murray with this build, so it does make sense to go through and take AJ Green and get some correlation in here if we were wanting to bet on that Arizona Cardinals passing offense. But at the same time, we already had James Conner. We already had Zach Ertz. So having that quote pseudo double stack there with that Arizona Cardinals offense, I don't think we're dying to go through and grab that other guy. Okay, so you have Mac Jones, Gus Edwards off the board here. Swing this back around. Interesting to see Hooper still available. So let's recap our team so far. So quarterback, we have Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts. At running back, we have Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris. Sorry, I'm having to make a pick in the other draft. Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, James Conner, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So we're going to the hyper-fragile build. And then at wide receiver, we have Sutton, Kadarius Toney, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Parker, Michael Gallup, Wan'Dale Robinson, Paris Campbell, Zay Jones. And then at tight end, we have the combination of Zach Ertz and Mike Gesicki. So I think it's a unique build. I definitely think it's a unique build. I think it's a team where, especially if all of our running backs have different bye weeks, I think we can get away with this at the running back position, only having 4 guys. Still probably want to grab that 3rd tight end. Our 3rd tight end's off the board. Actually, no, he's still there. He's still there. We're good. We are sitting pretty here, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, Austin Hooper goes 197. Hooper would have been someone we would have taken if he would have just fallen all the way back to us at the 18-19 turn. See what CSU Rams decided to do. Goes Isaiah Likely here. It's a 3rd tight end. So people are that excited about this Isaiah Likely performance. I guess you do have the bonus that he, like Derek said, he hasn't been drafted in a lot of these. Will Fuller 200. We would have taken Will Fuller if he made it to us at the turn here. I think we're going to go, quote unquote, reach on 2 guys that most people are probably not drafting. It is what it is. I like him, though. God, people are real excited about Isaiah Likely. Yeah, I'm looking at Twitter right now. Kyle Rudolph off the board. Okay, so our wide receiver that we're going to go with that most people aren't drafting, David Bell down here. I think David Bell can be this year's Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then if we're going to go look at the tight end position, someone that's not being drafted in every single one of these, someone that I do think has upside down the stretch. I know he's going to miss the beginning portion of the season, but we're looking at weeks 15, 16, 17. If we're trying to optimize here, we're going to go ahead and take Logan Thomas as our 3rd tight end. I really like this team, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. I really like this team. Let's go through and let me show off this entire draft board. And we are about 30 likes away from firing up another draft after this one if y'all want to see another draft. But let me show y'all this board first. So let's move this down. Let me know what y'all think of this team. Obviously, a little bit of a different build going hyper fragile here, but I'm completely fine with it. Question is, do we just have enough wide receiver firepower? What I think we're going to need is we're just going to need one of these rookies to break out, which I do like this rookie draft class of the wide receiver position in particular. I mean, I think that the running back depth in this draft class is not that exciting. Like, I know everybody loves Dameon Pierce now. I'm probably going to be pumping the brakes on the Dameon Pierce hype train. Same thing, Tyler Algier. I know a lot of people are fans of them, but still. Endless Football says, are you not concerned that Fuller still isn't on the roster? Could be a waste to pick. 100% I'm concerned that Will Fuller is not on the roster. Like, of course, I can't sit here and say, oh, no, Will Fuller, it's completely fine. No, I would have wanted to see him signed to a team. But I will admit to you, I mean, about a month ago, or I mean, maybe 2 months ago at this point, I was drafting Will Fuller in the 15th round. Like, I'm not drafting Will Fuller in the 15th anymore. If I get him at the 17, 18 turn in a best ball format, I'm still going to go through. I'm still going to make that play. In the 18th. The 15th, it doesn't seem like that good of an option anymore. Okay, so let's go through. Looks like we are like 20 likes away from hitting 1,100, so we're not going to hit 1,100 on this live stream. But thank you, everybody, for coming out. I appreciate all of you so damn much. We did 5 drafts tonight, or 4 drafts tonight. I don't exactly know. I'm going to continue to live stream these drafts for y'all every single night. Let's plan on seeing you tomorrow night, probably around 9 p.m. Eastern. Of course, if you want to get in that next draft with us, Underdog Fantasy, link in the description, $10 deposit. Gets matched, so it's essentially free for you, and you get our 2022 draft guide and our 2022 rankings. Take advantage of that. I will send you all a link to join our free fantasy football group chat if y'all want to. It's completely free. You don't need a credit card. You don't need an email. You don't need anything. I'll spam that in the live chat right now. All you do is click the link, choose the little nickname that you want to be in the fantasy football group chat, and then you're done. But thank you again. I appreciate all of y'all. I hope you have a great day, and I hope we get to see you with the live stream tomorrow.